What my
Eli?
wife will tell you
Hey,
is that
by
I
the
just do
way,
things with
Eli's name
dead
is called
horse.
I just
Ellie.
want to say, Eli, you have a very sexy voice, Eli.
Eli is not Eli. Eli is Ellie. His real name is
It's
Ellie.
it's really either whichever people prefer. It's fine.
How does your mama call you?
Ellie,
You
that's
see?
like the
Are you
Hebrew
kidding
version.
me?
She's
Oh my
Ellie.
God,
He's Ellie.
Ellie.
That's so
Really the
weird.
Japanese way. No,
You
really the Japanese way, Ellie. Yeah.
really? Oh, I'm so
But
sorry,
does she know that your name's Eli, though?
No, but no. The thing is that everybody has always called me Eli.
Mommy! Tyler,
Everybody.
does your mom know you're Tyler? Or Tiger? Or Tyler? Tyler?
Cheryl, how did you know that it was Ellie?
No, because I keep calling him Ellie, so I asked him, I verified. I said, okay, so what do you call yourself really? Then he said his real name is Ellie. But
Well,
everybody in American, because of the broken American English, call
But
him
now,
Eli.
but you
It's
know, you
not
can.
broken. It's a different dialect.
Yeah, but
Cheryl.
normally Ali spelled with A-L-I.
No.
So, Ellie, do you need a good lawyer to sue your parents now? Because we could arrange that.
Is it short for something? I mean, or is it just...
that's the full name, and like even since I was in elementary school, everybody's called me Eli, and I'm equally fine with both.
No,
I'm-
but that's
Okay,
not your
so
name.
it's,
The emotional trauma that you've dealt with.
Ellie.
he doesn't want to deal with it anymore, right? So it's Ellie Rabani. Nice name.
Yeah, actually, now it makes more sense with the last name
Yeah.
as a whole name. Yeah.
Cheryl, I learn something from you every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're curious, just ask.
You are one of the
Yeah.
most direct and curious people I know.
No shit.
Yeah. No
I
harm
love that
asking.
about. I mean, just Asians in general, like, are kind of fearless around like the things that Americans tiptoe around. You know, they
Yeah,
just
but
walk.
Cheryl's on another level.
The ties are the best. So it's like, oh, you're looking so fat.
Oh my goodness, those are the last time I would go to the U.S. and return. One of my colleagues would make me like walk, I mean, because I don't run, but walk around like the lake with her for 45 minutes a day after work. I was like, she's like, you're fat. Same me. I was like, no, I'm not. I'm just a little round, soft.
Yeah, they'll say, "Oh, you're getting a beer belly now. Oh, look, so what happened to you?"
The worst is you go visit family in Asia and they talk about how you've gotten fat, but
Yeah.
then they're like, "Come on, let's sit and eat."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I think
Exactly.
some cultures they take that as
As a
being
compliment.
wealthy and well fed. Here in Ethiopia,
Yeah,
that's what
yeah.
used to be. I have always been so skinny, and everybody thought that my parents were never feeding me enough. So, yeah. So this is, I think, a culture when
It's
they say
all
the beer
relative.
and yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
It's one of those things.
okay. Are we ready?
Have you done your Twitter live stream yet?
Oh shit! Thank you, Cheryl.
Yep.
It
Drink
did,
some
but
water, clear your throat.
I did, but I just need to pin it first.
Amazing housekeeping from Cheryl. You know,
Yeah.
this is like
Cheryl is great.
I like that.
Okay, I have OCD.
Hey Cheryl, I have to correct you though. It's OCPD. If you're really a perfectionist, you need to know that because
Obsessive compulsive
I'm not
perfectionist
really.
disorder.
I thought it was.
yeah.
I'm not perfectionist.
Personal disorder.
I'm just
Well, no,
okay.
OCD is when you repeat ritualistic things like every time I start
I
my
do
car,
it.
I need to honk the horn 3 times. Or OCPD is the one they refer to as being a perfectionist. Like you always are on time. You don't like to waste money. Unfortunately, I found
That's not true. I spend a lot on food, by the way.
Yeah, but I think things have shifted now over the months, Tyler. You know, first it was Tyler and Cal. Sometimes Kyler. You know, I remember Ella saying Kyler instead of Tyler and Cal, and now it's more Tyler and Cheryl. So it's Terrell.
Yeah, Terrell. So before
Are we terrorists now?
before we get into the tech news, let's start it off on a real down, sad note here and ask Ellen. Let's really poop in the punch bowl. And Ellen, is there any additional, being your, one of the biggest news is going around the world at the moment is this real tragic bow and arrow 5-person murder spree happening in Norway. Is there any additional local context as our resident Norwegian that can be added that maybe the international press might not touch on?
I woke up to this news this morning, and as far as I know, they have the guy.
Yeah.
And he's giving a detailed explanation to the police. And the only news we have is that he said that he acted alone. But it took me some time to wrap my head around that 5 people were shot with bow and arrow, to be honest.
And I think it's a Dane. It's a Danish guy.
Oh, he's a Danish guy?
He's a Danish guy, yeah.
Oh, maybe they were making fun of how he talks with... That's what...
Maybe it's the butter cookies.
No, it's because Danes have a way that they speak that the other Scandinavians kind of tease them about, and maybe he snapped.
Well, I don't know. Let's see. Could happen.
Interesting. That makes it a little even... That's weird. Okay, well, I imagine you're going to hear some interesting details that the rest of the world doesn't hear being... If he was Norwegian, we would know who his cousins are, and we would know everything about him at this point. Yeah, that's weird.
As far as I know, they haven't released any names.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the victims was a off-duty police officer.
Yeah,
that's the only other bit of context I've heard thus far. Okay. So
he started shooting inside a shop apparently, and as usual when such things happens with pointy weapons, the guess works, since there's very little information about the actual perpetrator, goes in a certain direction, and so. We will know more during the day, but so far we're very scarce with information. Johan?
Yeah. Okay. First biggest headline in the tech space today is from a Variety, which is the main Hollywood publication, who's getting making headlines more and more frequently these days. But this is not really a media-ish headline, but it says Facebook says it now counts activists and journalists as involuntary public figures to help protect them, and will remove sexual content targeting celebrities. Okay, that's why it's in Variety, because it's about celebrities. Facebook says it will start removing sexualized attacks on celebrities as part of anti-harassment policy update. Facebook said it will remove severe sexualizing content targeting public figures, including celebrities, politicians, creators, and people who have involuntarily become famous. For example, journalists and activists. That is posted on Facebook or Instagram as part of an update to its bullying and harassment policies. The social media giant said it already removes attacks on public figures that encompass a range of harms. It now also specifically will remove severe sexualizing content, profiles, pages, groups, or events dedicated to sexualizing a public figure. So I guess there goes our crazy SpongeBob pants, party that we were planning. That we got.
You know what's sad about this?
Yeah.
The Tyler and group is that they're focusing on the famous person. I would have clapped more if they were focusing on, as they said, the issue with teen girls having issues. It would have been a better focus to solve on that versus grown-ups that have money.
What's going through my mind is deep fakes, because we're on the precipice of the deep fake explosion. And oh boy, is it going to be an endless barrage of celebrities and political figures of all types being made into deep fake vulgar images, severe sexualizing content. I said it exactly right. I mean, that's coming right around the corner. So yeah, it says sexualizing public figures, derogatory, sexualized, photoshopped images and drawings, and attacks through quote-unquote negative physical descriptions that are tagged to, mentioned, or posted on public figures' account. In addition, Facebook said it will remove unwanted sexualized commentary and repeated content that is sexually harassing. Here's a quote. We made these changes because attacks like these can weaponize a public figure's appearance, which is unnecessary and often not related to the work these public figures represent, says Antigon Davis, Facebook's global head of safety, wrote in a blog post on Wednesday. In addition, Facebook said it will provide more protections to people who have become public figures involuntarily, like journalists and human rights activists. Becoming a public figure isn't always a choice, and that this fame can increase the risk of bullying and harassment, particularly if the person comes from an underrepresented community, including women, people of color, or LGBTQ community. Facebook's announcement of the expanded anti-harassment policy comes after years of critics charging that the company doesn't do enough to curb harmful behavior and misinformation. The tech giant's practices have drawn an even bigger spotlight after recent accusations by an ex-employee whistleblower that the company prioritized profits over safety. The company also was the subject of a damaging investigative series last month by the Wall Street Journal. Facebook posted the full list of new protections for public figures, including involuntary public figures, in an updated section of its community standard site. More broadly, as part of the anti-harassment public update, Facebook will now remove coordinated efforts of mass harassment that target individuals at heightened risk of offline harm, like victims of violent tragedies or government dissidents, even if the content on its own wouldn't violate Facebook's policies. It will also remove objectionable material that is considered mass harassment towards any individual, such as direct messages or inbox or comments on personal profiles or posts. And Facebook said it will remove state-linked and adversarial networks or accounts that work in a coordinated way to harass or silence people. For example, a state-sponsored organization using closed private groups to coordinate mass posting on political dissidents' profiles. Another quote, "It's important that everyone on our app feels safe to engage and connect with their communities," Davis wrote. "We do not allow bullying or harassment on our platform, but when it does happen, we act." So that quote is quite interesting in that they're saying, when there's actual real problems, we take action on them. We're an action-prone organization that make it a safe and welcoming platform. And yeah, so it's this is a interesting that they're addressing, counteracting the strong narrative that has been built against them. Step by step, you're going to see the Facebook comms team go into overdrive to turn the tide of negative public sentiment that's developed against them as a result of the Wall Street Journal Facebook files. Will be fun to watch. And that's I assume this is kind of part of it. Okay, so that's the top story. There's a whole bunch of tweets. For example, Brian Armstrong, who's the CEO of Coinbase, which is another big company, did what I guess is somewhat related. It says journalists are big on disclosure of conflicts. They should probably add a disclosure at the end of each negative article on Facebook that, quote unquote, we compete with Facebook for ad spend. Oh, snap. Oh, Brian, right in the jugular. Oh, damn. Jumping off the third rope, doing a pile driver on top of the media with that one. He's got a great point there. It's very common for journalists to say, revealing disclosures of conflicts. So like when they say, oh, by the way, we're writing this article about Amazon and Jeff Bezos is the owner of the Washington Post, for example. And, they always do that disclosure of conflict. Very normal to do that. So Brian, the CEO of Coinbase, who is getting a bit of harsh treatment from the press, a bit unfairly harsh treatment, says they should probably add a disclosure at the end of every negative article about Facebook that we compete with Facebook for ad spend. which is exactly right. And then he shows the proof of it as a screenshot of an image of a chart that I'm retweeting now. So you can see it, where it shows how the amount of dollars spent globally, newspapers' decline in print advertising are accelerating, shrinking their share of media spending. And guess where it's going? To digital, to Facebook. So all that money that used to go to these publications is now going to Facebook. So, Brian, well done, my man. That's that earned a retweet. And then the two New York, but there's two responses to his tweet from the two New York Times tech journalists. The first saying, "But not the positive articles, right?" And yeah, whenever those happen. And yeah, there's a whole bunch of PR or tech journalists commenting on his post as they can't really come back at that. So the next one is from the New York Times. Oh, and it's about Facebook. What a surprise. New York Times says Facebook sets some internal message boards to private, including discussions on platform safety and election integrity, limiting which employees have access. Okay. Dun, dun, dun. Facebook told employees on Tuesday that it was making some of its internal online discussion groups private in an effort to minimize leaks. Yep. That sounds like a good idea when you've got whistleblowers and leakers. That sounds like a perfectly sane scenario right there. That sounds like what sane people would do. Many Facebook employees join online discussion groups on Workplace, an internal message board that workers use to communicate and collaborate with one another. In the announcement on Tuesday, the company said it was making some groups focused on platform safety and protecting elections, an area known broadly as integrity, private instead of public within the company, limiting who can view and participate in the discussion threads. Right. Yep, that's what you would do, because you don't necessarily want everyone in the company knowing that. It's not relevant to them. And they might misunderstand what's actually going on. They might misconstrue what the real essence of that is, because they're not part of those teams. They're not in those groups. They work in Instagram. They work at WhatsApp. They're not even working at that company for necessarily, right? And that was precisely the case with Frances Haugen. She did not work at Instagram. She was getting documents that had nothing to do with the company she worked at or the team she worked on in the research group that did that survey for Instagram. And that's what Facebook themselves pointed out. So they're, rather than having people not related to those meetings or teams or groups commenting on things they know really nothing about, how about we just keep the information in the circles and spheres and silos of the people who understand the context of what's going on there? Kind of makes sense if you think about it. Apple already does that. Pretty much every big company does that. And Facebook, this is kind of I think the growing pains that these tech companies are going through in the new work from home era that we're all kind of quickly going into. And we've seen that there was a big article about that yesterday, about how Slack, which is Facebook doesn't use Slack because they have Facebook messages and groups and all that. But Apple's using Slack. A lot of companies are using Slack. And the article yesterday from The Atlantic was that that's giving these employees a kind of new sense of power against their executive and leaders in the organization, because now they have a way to collaborate and get exposed to content they weren't normally previously exposed to, and able to search for things they weren't able to normally search for. And it's causing some heartache and headaches and hiccups. Yeah. So they're going to start siloing. As everybody, the move follows the disclosure by Frances Haugen, a former employee, and thousands of pages of internal documents to regulators, lawmakers, and news media. The documents show that Facebook was aware of some of the harms it was causing. Ms. Haugen, a former member of Facebook's civil misinformation team has filed a whistleblower complaint with the SEC. And here's a quote. As everyone is likely aware, we've seen an increase in the number of integrity-related leaks in recent months, an engineering director wrote in the announcement, which was reviewed by the New York Times. Oh, so somebody leaked that to you. So the comment about the increase in leaks was leaked to you. Okay. Yeah, kind of meta. The leaks aren't representative of the nuances and complexities involved in our work and are often taken out of context, leading to our work being mischaracterized externally. Oh, sounds familiar. Kind of sounds like what I just said about, 2.5 minutes ago. Facebook had been known for an open culture that encouraged debate and transparency, but it has become a more insular as it has confronted leaks about issues such as toxic speech and misinformation and grappled with employee unrest. In July, the communications team shuttered comments on the internal forum used for company-wide announcements, writing, "Our one request, please don't leak." Here's another quote. Leaks make it harder for our teams to work together, can put employees working on sensitive subjects at risk externally, and lead to complex topics being misrepresented and misunderstood, says Andy Stone, a Facebook spokesman, said in a statement. Mr. Stone also said Facebook had been planning the changes for months. Tuesday's announcement stated that Facebook plans to comb through some of the online discussion groups to remove individuals whose work isn't related to safety and security. The changes will occur in the coming months, and with the expectation that sensitive integrity discussions will happen in closed, curated forums in the future. In internal comments, which were shared with the New York Times, some employees supported the move while others denounced the loss of transparency and collaboration. They called the change counterproductive and disheartening, with one person suggesting that it could lead to even more leaks from disgruntled employees. Here's a quote. I think every single person at the company should be thinking about and working on integrity as part of their day-to-day role. And we should work to foster a culture where that's the expectations, one Facebook employee wrote. Siloing off the people who are dedicated to integrity will harm both active efforts to collaborate and reduce the cultural expectation that integrity is everyone's responsibility. No. The system admin dudes who, with the breadcrumbs and their belly buttons, who are the most socially awkward people you will ever meet in your life, who can,
I represent that statement, Tyler.
I know, we all know who these people are, and they're, many of my dear friends. They don't want.
I feel offended.
I feel personally attacked. A little. Am I painting the picture a little too accurately here? Those of us who have been at startups know exactly who we're describing here. We don't need, the Uber geeks, they didn't sign up to be part of the integrity team. They want nothing to do with the integrity team, I can assure you. So yeah, no, it's not this concept of the entire company's now on the integrity team. That's kind of a lofty ambition, but that's quite far from reality. Okay, interesting.
Hey, Tyler.
Kind of a nothing headline. The New York Times still. And back to Brian Armstrong's point from Coinbase. There's notably missing the disclosure that the New York Times competes with Facebook for ad dollars, and this is just yet another. As I've said, ever since the Facebook files, the New York Times cannot go 3 hours without writing a negative piece intending to fan the flames on what was a dumpster fire over there at Facebook. And they just are not willing to let that fire die out. Boy, oh boy, are they just looking for any tiny thing to jump on. This is hardly worth writing an article about. The amazing thing is that Facebook hadn't already been doing this. That's the headline. That a company that size was leaving all the communications open related to their privacy and security teams and what they're doing. That's quite remarkable. The fact that they're now deciding to not do that. Next one is, let me see.
Tyler,
yes.
Can you check the hand raise,
yes.
please? And I think Ken has a comment to make.
Go ahead, Ken.
Oh no, you have to bring him up first.
Oh, okay. I don't see him.
He is there.
Oh, there he is. I got him. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a follow-up on Norway when we have a slot.
Go ahead.
The thing is that it has been 7 people that have either been stabbed or shot by bow and arrow. Apparently, the perpetrator has been running around in Kongsberg. The attack began at Coop, which is the food store.
Supermarket.
Supermarket. And he shot at everybody he could. And when he did run out of arrow, he turned over to knife. And apparently it is a Danish citizen, and he has converted from Christendom to some other religion without bringing up that hot potato up. And this is a modus operandi we have seen several times both in the whole of Europe, or rather the whole of the world, that when they can't get hand of weapons, they turn into sharp objects. So the thing is here that they have apprehended him without any larger fight. They fired warning shots, so he is apprehended, and they are up for interrogations during the day. Of course, he already has a lawyer appointed, as we have in the Swedish and Norwegian law system. We always appoint a lawyer before any interviews or interrogations takes place. But this is just horrendous. It's actually small fathers and wives with small kids that has been hit at the supermarket, as well as an off-duty police officer that tried to hinder him, that were actually shot dead blank in the heart with an arrow. Holy crap, Johan then.
So there's a tweet about the New York Times Facebook article that I just read from Steven Sinofsky, who's a partner at Andreessen Horowitz, and who's quite active here in Clubhouse from time to time. And he says, he tweets about this article that Facebook clamps down on its internal message boards. And by the way, Steven's like a very kind of renowned geek in Silicon Valley, and was very senior at Microsoft for many years. And he says, also interesting is effort at having this be public at first, when most every company would have these be secured all along, like from the beginning, with network security, potential breaches, account info, account abuse, etc. Yep, exactly. That's the interesting thing, that this wasn't private to begin with. And I think people like he and geeks who work at other big companies like Microsoft are like, that you were, it's just weird that you were able to go this long with that kind of exposure, open kimono style inside the company. It was inevitably going to get abused in some way, and it is. People are jumping into files and presentations and documents and PDFs of meetings they had no part in at companies they don't even work at, coming to conclusions that were misconstrued, as was the comment from Andy Stone at Facebook. So they don't want to see their files being misused by leakers with bad intentions to misconstrue the meanings of things. And the problem is, in the past, in the good old days, if that, like I said, that document that was leaked to the Wall Street Journal, they reviewed that document. They would have said, we've now seen a document that shows that Facebook actually helps young people. In the vast majority of cases, young people feel that Instagram helps them. We saw a document, and this document shows that young people, in the vast majority of cases, in 11 out of 12 cases, it actually helps them with their own feelings about stressful issues, with the exception of young women with body self-image. But because that's what the slide showed. That was the data in the graph of the survey. That was the results of the survey. But they
could have just said that 2/3 didn't have body image issues.
This is my point, is they were intentionally cherry picking. And that ain't journalism. Journalism is not cherry picking data from a chart. That's not it. You supposed to give the full context of what you're reporting. You see something, you report on something in its fuller context. You don't intentionally exclude the elements of the context that is counter to a narrative that you're trying to create. Professor?
Tyler, but media always tries to sensationalize things. You say one thing to them and they'll make it out as if you've got the panacea for a cure, or so I think the audience is misled a lot by media.
So, next one from The Verge. Activision announces the Ricochet anti-cheating system for Call of Duty. Warzone, which uses a PC kernel level driver and machine learning to examine player behavior. Activision's cracking down on Call of Duty cheaters. Oh, just 10 years later, 20 years later? My God. I guess it just got out of hand, did it? It got to the point where you couldn't play the game unless you were cheating because everyone's just running around doing headshots all day. Activision and Raven Software are finally cracking down on cheating in Call of Duty Warzone. Okay, next up from Canadian Press. Wow. Up to 70% of Instacart couriers in the US and Canada could walk off the job this weekend, demanding at least 10% default tip, commissions, and pay by order. Canadian and American Instacart workers plan to work off the job this weekend in a bid to secure better pay and more benefits.
You guys really want the robots, huh?
They're just begging for the robots. Canadian walk up the job this weekend in a bid to secure better pay and more benefits. We want to be paid more. So it makes it the robots seem even. It makes the inevitability of the robots come sooner. The higher the salary of the human is, the sooner they'll be replaced by the robots, because comparatively it makes the robot cheaper. Non-profit labor group Gig Workers Collective says it expects up to 70% of independent contractors working for the grocery delivery app to stop accepting orders on October 16th. So yeah, that's Saturday. Instacart is a California-based company that uses independent contractors to fulfill grocery delivery or pickup orders placed through its app. The workers are hoping the move will convince the company to raise the app's default tip to at least 10% for every order, reintroduce commissions, and pay them by order rather than batch. Daniel Fuhrer, a Durham, Ontario entrepreneur who has worked for Instacart since last May, says these issues are important for the app's workers because he noticed his pay shrink dramatically throughout the COVID pandemic despite his hours not changing. Well, yeah, because a lot more people were willing to work alongside you in the app. And when there's more people willing to work, you're competing for the same jobs. It's a marketplace. You have an app that sends you offers and opportunities for a gig, meaning a 30-minute job. You have an app in your pocket. It's sending you notifications saying, would you like to make $10 for the next hour? Would you like to make $8 for the next 30 minutes? If not, feel free to ignore that message. There's a whole lot of apps on your phone sending you opportunities that you are absolutely free to ignore. And if you accept them, great. They will pay you. And if you don't accept them, you don't have to do it. And if you want them to stop sending you messages, you can turn off notifications, you can delete the app. But a whole bunch of the people who've been doing a bunch of the deliveries came up with a clever scheme. Hey, what if we all stop accepting the opportunities? Well, the 30% of you who don't stop taking the opportunities are going to make a shit ton of money that weekend. They're going to be very busy indeed. And the prices might go up a little bit as there's less in the supply side of the marketplace. There'll be, probably equal demand, less supply, prices go up. This happened in Uber. Uber prices are higher than pre-COVID. So we'll see how it shakes out. Instacart workers who are called shoppers receive a travel payment, tips, and other sums based on fees paid by customers. In May and June, I started noticing this downward trend with my income dropping, and I couldn't really figure out why. He says, he keeps meticulous spreadsheets to track his wages and noticed his earnings had been dropping. So now they're going to have a little bit of a kind of a soft union effort here with the gig workers.
It's
The
it's really
Teamsters,
it's
right?
really too bad we don't teach supply and demand in school. And I know the person's tracking their wages, but as more people, as he or she deals with more competition for those hours, of course the company's going to lower the pay. It's just really sad.
I
It's
think
common sense.
What I would say from the worker standpoint is that the US is a tipping culture in
Yeah.
particularly in the food service industry. So I don't know that that piece of it is really all that um, out of out of the realm of possibility, just because typically people who work in food and service, they have this, they rely on their tips. And so I mean, I don't think that that's extraordinary, and really it doesn't place undue financial pressure on the firm. It reinforces this tipping culture that exists in the
The
US.
the challenge though, Lakeisha, is that tipping culture has really shifted as the millennials have moved into that space. I mean, when I talk to people that are in that space, they say that the younger generation sometimes just doesn't tip. I mean, which is like,
Ooh, that's a good
I
point.
I've, I rarely will not leave a dime. Like that's, you have to be really rude to me for me to not leave you a dime if I'm at a sit down restaurant. And it's not uncommon to hear stories that that's now what happens.
That's really, really unfortunate. And, I mean, I think that I don't know that it would necessarily happen, but, that culture, that part of U.S. culture as it relates to dining really needs to be addressed. It's a remnant from slavery, actually, when the freed people were, working in food and as railroad porters. And so it was a way to keep their wages artificially low. But I mean, I think that's systemic, and I don't know how likely it is to be changed. But that's really tough on people that are making less than minimum wage.
Yeah. I mean, I come from Greece, my mom has a restaurant,
Yeah.
a waitress her whole life. When I went to high school or when I went to college, her boss retired and she was lucky enough to buy the restaurant. She had saved up enough and we borrowed from family. And it really changed our trajectory as a family. And it taught me so many life skills about how to deal with customers. If it's your parents' restaurant, you can't exactly tell them to go F off when they yell at you or make you mad.
So
And
Yeah.
so valuable for me.
there's a tweet from Claire Kellaway who says, the kind of money I was making in 20 to 30 hours, I would probably need to work 100 hours now. And I've seen a 70% pay cut over the years. It's really not worth it. It's not reliable anymore. And now Instacart shoppers are walking off and asking shoppers to delete the app. Okay, if the opportunities that they're sending you aren't worth your time, don't accept them.
Do
Eh,
something else.
But there's another perspective here. Instacart, I believe, just by memory, they've raised between 2 and 3 billion. I think closer to 3 billion U.S. in venture capital, and I think they have around 12,000 employees. I'm not sure if that includes the gig workers. I guess it does. But why, if the investors are going to make a bundle off this company, why can't they subsidize more these gig workers with some of that investment money?
why should they?
Why be nice? They're trying to get what they can with what they can with. I mean, if they can keep getting the people to service, because there's some people who want to work at a lower price, they'll continue to pay that. When they can't find people who want to work at that wage, then the wages will go up.
Right. It's a dynamic marketplace. It's an incredibly efficient digital dynamic marketplace in real time. It's far more effective capitalistically than any other system or marketplace. Normally with jobs, the job marketplace in the US is rather dynamic and fluid and has a lot of liquidity, but not as much as these gig apps do. Those things are dynamic in a minute by minute basis based on supply and demand in real time.
Yeah, Tyler, but what will happen if you don't be generous is that government and public will regulate it. That's the reason why other employment is not, because the gig economy
Yeah,
is not
and
regulated.
that's fine. And then the apps will say, go fuck yourself. It's automated, bitch. Done. Checkmate. Bye bye.
Tyler, remember a few months ago, Food Panda was really
You think
struggling
you're gonna
here.
beat tech? Get the fuck out of here, you fucking idiots. Have you not been watching history since the Industrial Revolution? You're gonna beat the fucking locomotive? You're fucking donkey fucking post? You wanna send mail by fucking horse when the fucking train comes out? You fucking idiots. You think you're gonna beat the train? Have you not picked up a fucking history book?
No, Tyler, what will happen is that those
We don't
trains
like
will
these
get
telephones. They're
regulated.
killing all of the fucking Pony Express. Kill the telephones. That's what happened. That's what they tried to do. That's what they're doing now.
Tyler, what Professor Asif, I think, is saying, I don't want to, put
We got
words
to
in his
regulate
mouth.
these telephones. They're killing all of
Not,
the Pony
not Tyler.
Express. That's what
There's,
happened. That's what's
Tyler,
happening right now.
there's a
They're
reason we have
trying
these
to
types
regulate
of,
it, and they're gonna lose. The history on this is incredibly clear.
except for one thing. When the spread between the rich and the poor gets too big, you
You
get
have
something like the
revolutions. Yes, that happens. That's part of history too.
yeah, the
Pitchfork.
revolution. Yeah.
Listen, you're forgetting the bigger picture. I mean, it's not as free of a market, in my opinion, because I mean, you need to go back to the money supply. The money supply in the U.S. is not a free market. So this money piling into the company, and full disclosure, I'm involved with one of these companies here in Europe. Um, but the money coming in that's fueling the investment behind this, and ultimately going to make investors very rich, is on the backs of these gig workers. That, yeah, that part is a free market. I agree, but until the robots come in, it's the workers and the people. And I think if the tipping culture in the U.S. is changing, I mean, I believe in the U.S. if you're a restaurant personnel, a waiter, waitress, at a certain threshold, if you're not tipped enough, you actually lose money on a transaction. And I'm just not sure that that should be the case with all these kinds of workers.
The other
I
piece
So
to
that
that is a few months ago in Thailand, Food Panda, which is one of our, it's probably one of the top two, Food Panda and Grab for food delivery here. They were really struggling, and Grab, if I recall correctly. I remember talking with some business owners that were really having trouble getting their products shipped because these gig workers, they weren't earning what they thought they needed to earn, and they just simply stopped picking up the orders. And so I think that if if the businesses feel the pinch on the other side, that might be another impetus for change.
One more thing. I think Jay has to confirm this, but a few months ago, I actually read an article that Grab in Singapore are offering the riders share options, stock options, in the event that they IPO. But I'm not sure whether Jay is here to confirm it.
I
So
can't.
if they
I
are
can't
doing
say.
this,
Can't say, Cheryl.
yeah, I read it. I read it in the news. So anyway, if this goes well, right, that means the riders will have an ownership in the company. So they will probably have to think longer term if this kind of system works.
that's nice, but a lot of these people are living check to check, some by choice, some not by choice. But a couple of things. One thing, real quick. Someone was talking about tip culture, and they can be losing sometimes. You know what? In the '80s, when they changed the tax system here in the U.S., again, big government wasting their time going after the little guy, set up process that went more after the waiters and waitresses and those who actually collect tips that actually has hurt that industry. Again, government stepping in and screwing the average person. If they went back to the way the things were and focused less on the service industry and the tips that they're making, you probably get more people in that industry. The other thing is, again, people are leaving the jobs because those who are running the organizations are not paying a wage that they desire. But until there's a situation where it makes sense for the company to pay more, they're going to pay what they can get away with. And things will change and things will adjust. But there is no altruism in business. It's the bottom line.
And
Well, the
I
bottom
don't know why
line can
people
be
say
adjusted. And I believe regulations is one way where the bottom line gets adjusted so that you do pay attention to it. And I think while free markets work quite well, the transition from where we are to where we will be can be made more appealing for all involved. I think as you mentioned, Tyler, revolutions happen and revolutions are not fun for anybody. And they're kind of disruptive and chaotic and unpredictable, and that's definitely something to be avoided for the benefit of everyone, including those who are the beneficiary of the transition. So I think if the equation that allows businesses to do the right thing for their own good isn't there for them to do it, how are we going to deal with that as a society? That's a really big question.
And
And
Tyler,
if we're not
remember,
careful, we're gonna provide evidence for those who are going to conclude that there you have it, capitalism doesn't work, democracy doesn't work. That's the challenge.
Tyler, but one thing is true: revolutions might be bad, but Europe learned its lesson, and that's why we do evolution, not revolution. That's what.
Make no mistake, we're headed for a revolution. There's no way around it. Capitalism
There's no way around
inevitably
it.
will lead to a revolution.
That's right. But it's not inevitable. With proper leadership, with proper action, with proper social contract, with proper discussions, an example of which is this very forum, you could definitely make it better.
Yeah,
You can move the needle in this room with the right thought leaders and the right people just committed to it, but it's not going to be easy. We just have to commit to it.
I think Scandinavia has already shown exactly how to regulate capitalism to avoid revolutions.
They certainly get a lot of stuff right, for sure. And it shows. It shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, Craig said it. I mean, yeah, I totally agree with you. And we're doing that in the UK. That's the whole idea of leveling up agenda. Move to the center.
And your teaching of the Scandinavian way of the delivery of service to your customers, where your competitors are actually your collaborators. I'm applying that in my business whenever I can, because that, if your goal is to solve the problem, like Dr. Danish like to say, they are your collaborators, right? And I think we should adopt that mindset wherever we can.
Okay, so let's get.
Yeah, I think even to me is also successful businesses really don't have to rig the system if they can actually do business the responsible way and the right way. That would be great. I mean, look at the the Wall Street, how they operate, and even the Washington, right, the revolving door, to make sure that the system works for them. And that's why I think that huge gap of the have it and don't have it is capitalism creating, and everybody complaining about the system. If we can fix that in a little bit way, that would be great.
Okay, next up, let's see here. Next one is TikTok now lets live creators, that's a new term, live creators, that means live streaming, I imagine. TikTok now lets live creators mute specific viewers for up to an entire live stream, and says it removed 81 million videos that violated its terms of service in Q2, as it looks to evolve the use of its live streaming option into e-commerce. As part of its broader monetization push, TikTok is adding new control options for live broadcasters that will enable them to mute comments from individual viewers within streams for variable time periods. And they show a screenshot of how this works. So when you are live streaming, selling, a bunch of apples on TikTok, as these former Instacart gig workers will now find themselves with a whole lot of spare time on their hands. They might start selling, their dirty laundry on TikTok on a live stream, and there'll be a whole bunch of people making very rude comments, inevitably. And so TikTok knows this, and so TikTok's made a very convenient way for live streamers to block those very rude comments on your live stream, because they don't want you and your super sensitive, fragile, emotional, little beautiful self to stop selling. And they know one thing that'll get you to stop selling is if somebody says something that offends you. So they're now giving you tools to stop offensive comments so that you can keep on selling. As you can see in this example, the live stream hosts will now have the option to mute specific viewers for a period of time of the broadcast. So basically, you're broadcasting, you can see all of the commenters. You click on the commenter, it goes to their profile, then you select a duration of how long you'd like to mute their stupid ass, from 5 seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute, 5 minutes, or for the duration of your live stream. As explained by TikTok, now the host or their trusted helper can temporarily mute an unkind dipshit viewer for a few seconds or minutes, or for the duration of the live stream. If an account is muted for any amount of time, that person's entire comment history will also be removed. Hosts on TikTok Live can already turn off comments or limit potentially harmful comments using a keyword filter. We hope these new controls further empower hosts and audiences alike to have safe and entertaining live streams. There we go. We're gonna silence anyone who might hurt our very sensitive feelings. So the next one is
can't let the snowflakes have a meltdown.
They might boycott. They might tell everyone to delete the app. We're going to stop using you, TikTok, until we get we're demanding 10% tips. We understand the concept of tips is that the person can tip whatever they want, but we're demanding 10% tips. The next one is from Reuters. Internal documents. Oh boy. Have you guys noticed there's a lot of internal documents leaking lately? Internal documents show that Amazon's India arm ran a systematic campaign to create knockoffs and boost them in search starting in 2016. A trove of internal Amazon documents reveals how the e-commerce giant ran a systematic campaign of creating knockoff goods and manipulating search results. And this is some shady shit right here. This is some...
Yes.
They and I wonder, it might even be legal. It might even be in the terms of service that when you sign up for Amazon, I imagine this would be interesting to know. This is what I would like to know. Does it mention in Amazon's terms of service for you as a seller that Amazon has the right to sell like items? And even if they do, legally, this is some shady ass shit right here. This is some really despicable bullshit.
Double down on your Shopify stock.
The question is, well, are the Amazon's... Now, this is an instance where Amazon sellers could say, you know what? Screw Amazon. You're stealing our products that, we worked hard to create and sell and build a marketplace, and we're successful, and you're penalizing us for our success, and now you're competing directly against us in your own marketplace.
And don't forget to buy some ads, Tyler.
And now you got to buy. You want to still be at the top of the results? You got to buy an ad to be at the top of the results.
What a racket, man! Every one of these marketplaces are total rackets.
This just in: big corporate puts corporate profits above their users. This breaking news, everybody. And
I mean, I get that part, but you just have to laugh at the genius of the racket,
But
right?
where's the
Like,
Wall Street Journal article of the whistleblower saying, I think Amazon's putting profits above their users? With their insightful whistleblower leaks. I'm an Amazon employee. I got a hot leak. I think they're putting profits above their own users. Oh, really? You think so? Anyway, it gets worse because Amazon is geniusly, they've dominated e-commerce in the West, and they're now starting to move into the offline world because they've dominated the online e-commerce, and now they want to get into brick and mortar traditional commerce, and they're providing point of sale systems, the cash registers. We don't need cash registers anymore. We have these cute little iPads, little checkout point of sales. They're now creating not only point of sale systems for mom and pop shops and brick and mortar stores that will collect all of their sales data of what they're selling and who they're selling it to, because they also have palm scanning checkout payment systems, so they know who's buying it and what they're buying it, and they will know what everyone's buying and where they're buying it and how and when they're buying it in every city across America. And when they know all of that, they'll start if you have that Amazon payment system in your store and they get all that juicy data, what's going to stop them from marketing cheaper products to your own customers? This is some juicy data.
They would
Yeah, I would
never do
encourage
such a
everyone.
thing.
And if they realize, oh, that product, now they're realizing anything that can be bought through e-commerce is being bought in e-commerce. If it's not being bought in e-commerce, maybe there's some reason. Ice cream doesn't sell so well in e-commerce, by the way. You might have noticed you're not buying a lot of ice cream on your e-commerce, but maybe there's all kinds of interesting things and categories and products that don't sell well in e-commerce. Amazon wants to know what those are because now they're going to get into brick and mortar stores. They've just opened some. They already own Whole Foods, and they're going to spread out in the physical store space henceforward, and they're going to dominate brick and mortar
and they're
going
gonna
forward.
and they're gonna make you do, and they're gonna turn into a search engine for local commerce as well, and they're gonna monetize ads and use their point of sale system and integrate their back office activities so that you have full inventory management of like these small mom and pops, and like they're just gonna stick the knife in and twist it even more.
I had dinner with Amazon reseller here in Stockholm the other night, and he was first of all complaining about shipping costs from China. Container costs had
Yeah.
gone up like 3x, 4x. But then he started to say that he's selling across multiple countries, mainly in Europe, and the Amazon fees. There's just all these extra fees apparently that Amazon's gouging them with. Whether their storage fees or what have you. And he said, in the end, he told his accountant just to lump all this Amazon revenue and all the expenses across all countries into, one account. And as soon as it gets to be not profitable, he's just getting out, basically.
Well, join the Instacart gig workers, and that would be interesting to see. I think what Amazon sellers might do, and Shopify is a really interesting scenario where you basically create your own shop in the kind of Shopify network, but it's your store. And Shopify is not selling any products as of yet. So this could, like somebody hinted, maybe this could be a real benefit to Shopify. There might be a transition and start to get some blowback against Amazon. The game of Amazon, of selling on Amazon, it used to be a relatively open marketplace where anyone could go in, and there was a bunch of friction and barrier. It wasn't simple. And
It was once the fulfilled by Amazon really took over, right?
yeah,
And they could just dominate there. And they do, and it's not a trick, but what they do with the UPC pooling, right? Like, so once you list an item on Amazon through fulfillment by Amazon, say you have an item and you shipped it to their California warehouse, once it shows up in the system, it goes into a pool. So Amazon can take your California UPC item, and even if you don't sell it, use that to their logistical advantage. Meaning, if I have a customer in Los Angeles, I suddenly have Los Angeles inventory, and like that's the part people don't really understand, and they charge you for that. Like when you do a fulfilled by Amazon, if you're selling something and it's like brand new in box and it's got a UPC, the end user is not actually buying what you ship to Amazon. They're just buying out of the UPC pool. And so they flex their muscle even more that way too. It's just genius racket of money making. They're going to study this for a long time.
Okay, next up we got Microsoft agrees to commission an independent human rights review of its law enforcement and government contracts in response to a shareholder proposal from Bloomberg. After a shareholder proposal, Microsoft to commission an independent report on companies' contracts. Microsoft, which has faced pressure from employees and shareholders over contracts with the governments and law enforcement agencies, agreed to commission an independent human rights review of some of those deals. The move came in response to a June filing of a shareholder proposal asking the company to evaluate how well it sticks to its human rights statement and related policies. Microsoft committed to a review of any human rights impacts that its products have on those including communities of Black, Indigenous, and people of color in contracts for police, immigration enforcement, and unspecified other government agencies, according to correspondence from the company viewed by Bloomberg. Microsoft pledged to publish the report next year, and the shareholders
Hello,
who
good afternoon, Dr.
who
Latisha.
Good
include
afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. How about you today?
Kunjun. I'm well, thank you.
Yes.
Lakeisha doesn't know.
yes, all right. I'm tempted to listen in, but that's right. So the Microsoft, which has faced pressure from employees, the move came in response to a June filing. Microsoft pledged to publish the report next year, and the shareholders, who include faith-based investors like Religious of the Sacred Heart of Mary, have withdrawn their proposal ahead of Microsoft's annual shareholder meeting next month. Microsoft spokesman confirmed the company will undertake the review. Here's the quote. In response to shareholder requests, Microsoft will commission an independent third-party assessment to identify, understand, assess, and address actual or potential adverse human rights impacts of the company's products and services and business relationships with regard to law enforcement, immigration enforcement, and other government contracts. The assessment will include consultation with BIPOC communities, including immigrants and other groups representing communities most impacted by Microsoft's surveillance products, law enforcement, and government contracts, the company said in a statement. As government, military, and police contracts have become targets of scrutiny and activism, Microsoft employees have circulated letters demanding the company abandon a deal to build versions of its HoloLens augmented reality headsets for the U.S. Army. As well, that was like a $20 billion deal, if I recall correctly. I'm almost certain. Let me check. Microsoft HoloLens Army contract. 120,000 for $21.88 billion. So it was practically a $22 billion deal. So the employees have circulated letters demanding the company abandon the $22 billion deal. Strangely, Bloomberg left out the dollar amount in that. Rather important additional context there. Microsoft employees are telling Microsoft, we don't want you to sell $22 billion worth of HoloLens to the U.S. Army, as well as raising concerns about business with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Chief Executive Officer Satya Nadella has stood behind software sales to the U.S. military, but paused selling facial recognition technology to police departments. Although the company sells other programs to law enforcement, the California-based religious order agreed to lead the shareholder proposal because it wanted to make sure the company's products don't cause human rights harms, including perpetuating systemic racial inequities. They said in a statement.
I get a little tired every time these people throw in the racial part and the social justice stuff for these things. There's usually some other stuff behind this, but I'm getting a little tired of these employee uprisings. Right now, it's a buyer's market for the employees, but someday that will change.
Microsoft didn't specify which contracts will be examined, but shareholders expect it will include what the group said are about 16 active contracts with ICE and U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Here's a quote. "This will be an ambitious and complicated process, and we're certainly putting our faith in Microsoft to be conscientious," says Michael Connor, executive director of Open MIC, a nonprofit shareholder advocacy organization that worked with IASJ on the proposal. They're asking for input from affected rights holders, which was a very big request on our part, and they agreed to that. Human rights concerns have been raised by shareholders in areas related to labor in the apparel industry. Open MIC has also made similar requests of Amazon related to its facial recognition technology, as well as Apple, Facebook, and Google, without a positive response from the companies or a win at shareholder meetings. OpenMIC is also working on 2 other shareholder resolutions related to Microsoft, including one that asks the company to stop selling facial recognition software to all government agencies. Tech companies take the position that all tech is good, and while we as shareholders recognize that tech can be helpful, there are also many downsides. Microsoft earlier this month agreed to let more repair shops fix its devices in response to a push from a nonprofit shareholder Activision Group. Okay.
Hey Tyler, this facial recognition thing, what's the issue with law enforcement? Because I mean, if you sell it to the private sector, they're generally buying it for security. They're whatever, for security for retail or whatever. Even if the stuff works or it doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, they shouldn't be selling it. And if it does work, then it works just as well
I,
for the public sector as the private sector. What am I missing with that?
I think it's a squandered opportunity where if you believe there's a problem with the system, right, systemic issue, and you have an opportunity to actually implement change, like don't walk away from it. But it's just me.
No, but I'm just trying to understand. I mean, because the very nature of that software is generally used for security, either in the private sector or for the public sector. If you think it doesn't work, then maybe it discriminates against certain
No, I
people.
agree with you. I
There
just think
should be a difference. Yeah.
Well,
why
so
don't you
the
try to
thing
fix
is,
it, right?
the issue is intensified if, for example, you have facial recognition that isn't reliable with darker skin color.
I know that.
And
I
well,
understand that.
let
That's
me finish
exactly
the
the
point.
point. But it's an issue
Let
in the
me
private sector too.
Okay,
If it,
that's true, but the private sector generally isn't armed and ready to shoot people.
Point well
well,
taken.
Where somebody said Monica's in the audience. Where's Monica? Okay. Here I had against my own better judgment, I'll try to express an idea that might go bad, but the thought occurred to me, it makes sense that facial recognition works better on lighter skin. The darker the skin, the harder it is for facial recognition systems to work. I buy that. I don't think that means that the technology is inherently intentionally racist. It's just a challenge due to the amount of light reflected back into the camera. But what was the interesting thought that occurred to me? Oh, these facial recognition systems that use this technology will generally not be used to the benefit of the people who are recognized by these systems, meaning these facial recognition systems are not being used to give money to people or to reward you for being recognized in the system. Generally, these systems are going to be used for negative purposes, and then we can see how they're being used in China, for example, where, as it's now reported, people get fines for jaywalking across the street, and they get a notification on their phone when they're halfway through the intersection saying, oh, we've identified you, you're jaywalking on a red light, you're halfway through the street, the fine's $60, we went ahead and took it out of your account, have a nice day. Now, if these facial recognition systems were more accurate on darker skin and less accurate on lighter skin, and then it becomes realized that these systems are being used in the way that I'm describing, which inevitably they will, they're going to be used to find people committing crimes, and it turns out, imagine that for a second, imagine that the technology actually works better on darker skin and not as well on lighter skin. Would we not see headlines that say these systems are racist? These systems are punishing black criminals disproportionately to white people are not getting caught for the crimes they're doing. And people with darker skin are disproportionately being affected by this, and they're getting fined for walking across jaywalking, and white people are getting a free ride. And these systems are. We would see even stronger headlines if the opposite was true.
I think one of the things, Tyler, though I totally follow where you're at, is it less of the system, more of the human on the other side. When these things finally come out, some of these people are particular law enforcement have looked at some of these things that don't even end up looking like the person that they end up going after in a number of the situations that just are mind-boggling. But you know what? They were doing that even before the AI.
But there's already people trying to come up with ways to, who understand these systems that are like, let's come up with clever hats and glasses that intentionally confuse these cameras, because we know ain't nothing good going to come. You're not going to want what's on the receiving end of these algorithms. They're not going to use these to celebrate you and send you birthday cards in the mail. They're going to send you speeding tickets in the mail. They're going to send you all kinds of negative things you don't want to be identified by these cameras. Count your blessings. These things don't work well on darker skin. This is kind of to your benefit, essentially. And my point is, if it was the opposite, I have to imagine we would see lots of articles saying, "Oh my God, these people are being targeted," and lighter skinned people are getting often as these things are just So how do you win in this? It's like you're gonna. It's a peculiar scenario that we find ourselves in with this facial recognition stuff.
Tyler, and
Yeah.
I mean, this is a bit beyond my realm, but I have read articles in the past that suggest that photography in general does not do a, how would I say, it's never really been captured or designed to capture richer skin tones. So people of color have always had difficult time, capturing their accurate, skin tone and their lighting. And so I think this could very well just be an extension of that. I believe that Google tried to address it maybe a couple of years ago, but I think that it's broader than just the facial recognition component.
Yeah.
And by the way, I've seen this stuff used in casinos here, and I can tell you it's gotten a lot better than what it was originally. And there's a lot of things they look at, these systems look at beyond skin tone, and they're looking at, because people try, particularly in a casino, people try to disguise themselves, card counters, whatever. So they're looking at like this, the shape and the size of a nose, the shape and the size of lips, the distance between your eye, your eye sockets and everything. I mean, they're looking at everything, facial measurements and all of that, to try. I mean, they try to measure all of, have all of that stuff lined up before they, and it's not like ever is a perfect match, but the computer will come back and tell you it's whatever, a 90% match or an 85% match. And by the way, that's still the private sector, but like out here in Nevada, the private sector, the largest private employer, which is casinos, works a lot very hand in glove with law enforcement. So everybody either thinks that there's a big distinction. There really isn't, because if the casinos, think they got somebody, particularly if it's somebody that's on a terrorism list or something, they're calling the authorities. and you can still have an issue if it's the wrong identification, where they're gonna, you're gonna get law enforcement trying to apprehend the wrong person. So, to me, the biggest issue is this stuff needs to work as well as it can. Either it works or it doesn't. But I don't think there should be a distinction between selling it to the private sector and the public sector. If you think there's a problem with that system, that it's so inaccurate, it shouldn't be sold to the private sector either. And that's my only point with the whole thing.
Hey,
The
Tyler, I might
systems are,
light on this.
Yeah, Luis, you had your hand up, and then so did Sanai. Go ahead, Luis.
So sensors themselves, digital sensors, have more photo sites on the luma value, just the brightness. And it makes sense to me that you have more data coming back from a lighter or a reflective skin tone, and it'll give you a better match on the data. As far as the chroma values go and the color goes on the RGB, there are half. It's called debayering. So you lose the amount of potential data points on the color values. So black brightness, it would make sense to me that you have a better match.
this is where the time of flight, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump over, Sana. And the lidar is going to really take effect, because you're comparing to a flat image as well, so you need three-dimensional image of the person, and then three-dimensional reference image, and then that way, if you PTR, you don't have to get this clever identity concealing device that I have on my picture.
Okay, so welcome to Sanai.
Thank you for inviting me up.
Sure.
I've enjoyed the conversations over several months.
Cool.
I'm actually on my way into a team scrum right now, so I won't be here for long. I just wanted to make a couple of additions to the discussion regarding the facial recognition discussion.
Uh-huh.
The sound cut off for the last minute, so I don't know if I missed anything and if anybody already covered that. But the one part is you're talking about a lot of the hardware implications. I don't know if that is in the article itself, but I think you're missing a lot of the data source of error, because when we're talking about AI, the reason why people of color have been, or AI have been less accurate with people of color has been in the data inputs and training the algorithms. So a lot of the algorithms have mainly had people with lighter skin being trained on, which leads them to be more accurate on people with lighter skin than darker skin. So it's not necessarily only a hardware fault, but it's also a software error where the algorithms themselves have not had the chance to train on darker skin. That's
Right.
one thing.
Yes,
And that's missed in the discussion.
Yes, and as somebody who understands some of the details of this, are you upset that it doesn't work as well? I mean, you're kind of in the middle, skin tone wise, on the spectrum.
Yeah.
Are you upset that it works better on lighter skin?
Yes. No, I don't get upset, but I think it's.
Do you think it's a benefit to people with lighter skin?
No, because the thing is, you're talking about it as a benefit, or that you can predict whether it's going to be a beneficial or a how do you say a cost to people of skin, darker skin. The thing is, I don't think that it's easy to predict whether it will lead to false positives or false negatives. So whether it is in a situation where you will be punished or benefiting from the algorithm identifying you correctly, we don't know if it's going to do that or misallocate any punishment. So, for example, you're saying, okay, it works better on white people, therefore we will benefit, we will lose out on it in situations which will punish us. But also the opposite could be true. So instead of it misidentifying me when I should be punished, it could, when misidentifying me when I should be punished, it could punish the next person because it's not working correctly. If you understand what I mean, it's not that the person who's guilty is getting off. It could be that the person who's innocent is getting punished.
Right.
And that aspect was also missed. So that's the two additions I wanted to make to that discussion.
Very good additions. Thank you, Sanai. Welcome back, Monica and Simon. Simon, are they using facial rec in South Africa? Because that That's got to be a really interesting geography on this particular issue.
Not to the extent that you've got it in like London and places like that. It really isn't an issue that has come up yet here. So yeah, as soon as I hear something, I'll tweet it to you.
Okay. Alrighty. So the next one is, let's see, Apple's Explorer. Oh, this is a really interesting one. Wall Street Journal says they have sources, which means leaks, folks. Apple is exploring adding health-related features to AirPods, including for enhancing hearing. That's already live, by the way. That went live this week. It's called conversation mode. You can turn it on in your phone now. So people that have a difficulty hearing, focusing on conversations with background noises can now use their AirPods in conversation mode, and it will even make it easier to hear the person across from you, sort of like a hearing aid. But it gets better. They're now including in reading body temperatures and monitoring posture. And the body temperature has a few potentially interesting use cases. For example, in UC San Francisco is working with the Aura Ring, and they can track your body temperature in real time and notice apparently they're having good results with measuring the incremental body changes as the earliest indicators of somebody having COVID. There's kind of a signature increase in temperature during the evening, although
It's
not.
actually
Yeah.
an indicator of how sick you're going to get from COVID. I was reading, because I was sick, about a month ago, so I was really, really scared. I didn't have COVID, but what I was reading is like if you were actually cold when you started your COVID, it actually was a predictor that you were going to have a really bad case. I need to find that paper, but it was kind of interesting. Like you not having a fever early on was an indicator you're not going to do well.
And there's
No, Tyler, just a quick question on that one. Which which part of the update or which new hardware is this a component of? I know of the Aura Ring. Is this with 1502?
no,
And then the version.
it's not a soft. The software is the conversation. Yes, 1501, I think, or even just 15 actually. iOS 15.0.0 has the conversational mode update in the accessibility settings on your AirPods. I believe it has to be AirPods Pros, I believe.
Right. So if you recall, a while before that, there was patents filed for a particular technology that was going to be giving you temp reads, and based on that, and I think Chris, you probably remember this. It was going to be giving you temp reads off of body. It was giving indications from early on body temperatures of COVID. Now I find that call me a conspiracist or whatnot, but I find it a little difficult to. I just find it a little coincidental that all of a sudden Apple comes up with the same thing in Aura Ring a couple updates later.
Mm-hmm.
So, just a point there.
Yep, and the body temperature and posture monitoring will be in future hardware. I don't think it's unclear if the current AirPod Pros have the abilities to do that. It's but they're going to add all kinds of.
The current AirPod Pros don't have it, but from what this paper sounds like, what this article sounds like, it's a combination of the software and the upcoming AirPod Pros that are going to be having it. So
yeah,
that's why it's a little coincidental that they had this separate company that was filing that patent for that tech, and then now all of a sudden they've got hardware coming out that's got the same tech.
Yes, it's going to be very interesting for Apple in the health space as they have more sensors on people's bodies, and anything between your phone and your watch and your AirPods. They're going to know more about you than any other company, and they can leverage all of that data in incredibly interesting ways for health tech. The next one is from the Financial Times. They say, according to research, China's Bitcoin hash rate share fell from 44% to 0% from May to July as they swiftly shut down all of their Bitcoin mining. And then the US rose from 17% to 35% because a lot of those Chinese miners, like our friend David, moved to Texas. And Kazakhstan rose 18% because some of those miners went to Kazakhstan, which is a neighboring country with very cheap energy cost. So that all makes sense. The next one says
in fact, to add a quick comment on that, Bitcoin mining actually became more decentralized as a result.
Yes.
Which is a good thing. So
yeah.
Thank you, China.
Yes. The next one, it was worrisome because if China were to get over 50%, they could potentially do some crazy forking and whatnot. The next one, it starts to lose its decentrality, to your point, if one country starts doing too much of the mining. So with the US is at 35%, which is less than China when it had 44%. So mathematically, you're correct. It's now more decentralized than it was before. The next one is an overview of possible Section 230 reforms and why each proposed change might as well be an outright repeal given each one's practical effect. Some lawmakers are candid about their desire to repeal Section 230 entirely. I think a lot of Republicans. Others, however, express more of an interest to try and split this baby and reform it in some way to somehow magically fix all the problems of the internet without doing away with the whole thing and therefore the whole internet as well. And it's a very long post diving into Section 230, so I will spare you that one. Then the next one, related actually, from the Washington Post, says regulating social media algorithms, an increasingly appealing idea among U.S. lawmakers, is very hard to get right without running afoul of the First Amendment. Yes, in fact, it's really hard to do, period. Really, 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 really difficult to regulate social media algorithms because they're very complex and very technical. And American lawmakers are not able to regulate just regular social media without algorithms. So how the hell are they going to be able to regulate social media with algorithms? So Bill Gurley, who's a brilliant investor, tweets about this article saying this type of solution would be a great first step. Quickly, we would have tons of data about which posters are most challenged, whether there's a broad support in the challenges and challenge history of each arbiter. We would also learn more along the way in reading the debate. That's a big tweet thread. But a whole lot of people chiming in about this one because it's relevant. Lawmakers absolutely are starting to question about algorithms and how to regulate them. The next one is Apple says a virtual event titled Unleashed will be held October 18th at 10 a.m. Pacific time, where the new MacBook Pros and M1X are expected, and the new AirPod 3s are expected to come, and maybe they'll have those new temperature sensors we were just reading about. We will find out on Monday, October 18th, which will happen when we meet in our other time zone. Where we meet from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Pacific, and then we'll keep the live stream going for the event. Should be a lot of fun. The next one, Bloomberg says they have sources that Apple will likely cut its projected iPhone 13 production targets for 2021 by 10 million units due to a shortage of Broadcom and Texas Instruments parts. And I have a tweet coming up later when we get into the tweets that says that Apple stock went down yesterday as a result of that news, which makes sense. If they're going to sell 10 million less iPhones, you could do the math and figure out how much of a discount you should give Apple stock. The next one is from The Verge. It's a review of the new Apple Watch 7, which has a bigger display, dust resistance, and multiple timers, but only 1-day battery life and no third-party watch faces, or the new Qi charging standard, which is they're trying to make a ubiquitous charging standard to work with all devices. But Apple likes to make its own chargers because they like to make money on those chargers. So the net of the review is if you already have a watch, they don't encourage you to upgrade, that there's really just incremental upgrades for this Series 7. The next one is a company called Grin, which helps brands manage influencer marketing campaigns, raises $110 million. Then MindBody acquires ClassPass, a subscription-based fitness marketplace recently valued at $1 billion, in an all-stock deal, and raises another $500 million. And I believe ClassPass bought my friend's startup in Stockholm a year ago. Let me check.
Which one was that, Tyler?
I forget what she called her.
Super interesting. I got that news last night because I have the studio and I heard about it because I know I used to work for Rick Stallmeyer. I used to work for MindBody. So I'm pretty surprised that they did that, but that's like really wild if they have, because they're really kind of taking over the wellness and the fitness and the yoga, the whole yoga and wellness space, like hardcore.
Yes, it was my friend. It was called Fitness Collection. So Fitness Collection was acquired by ClassPass in October almost exactly a year ago to the day, October 15th. Wow. Fitness Collection, a Stockholm, Sweden-based company operating, was acquired by ClassPass exactly a year ago.
MindBody does a lot of really amazing stuff in terms of the analytics for the industry. So it's really a very powerful tool. And a lot of companies are in Europe specifically trying to make software that competes with them. But I'll be really transparent, having been in yoga for so long. I've been using MindBody since they started in probably 2004. And what is it, 17 years now? And Rick has really done he's done a great job to bring that company up, and how he's navigated it out of SLO, because he has the developers from SLO, from San Luis Obispo, from Cal Poly. So all of the developers that come into MindBody are coming straight out of Cal Poly. So it's crazy how he's got this really good structure there. And I think he even lives in SLO as well.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. So the next one is from Bloomberg. Payment processing and automation company Avid Exchange closed flat on its NASDAQ debut. GitLab seeks to raise $800 million in an IPO. Weights and Biases, which builds tools for machine learning researchers, raises $135 million. Matic, which offers business data-driven and automated tools for making personalized PowerPoint presentations for customers, raises $20 million, led by Andreessen Horowitz. Business data-driven and automated tools for making personalized PowerPoint presentations. Wow. In an open letter, the NHTSA calls Tesla requiring full self-driving users to sign NDAs unacceptable, and asks why Tesla didn't issue a recall alongside an OTA safety update. That's interesting. And it looks like...
Tyler, have you
Yes.
gotten into the exciting stuff of news yet, or no?
The tweets?
Yeah, the tweets, yeah.
We're almost there. But
Okay, cool.
this one is quite interesting. The U.S. National Highway Traffic Safety Administration sent a pair of letters to Tesla targeting the company's use of non-disclosure agreements for owners who gain early access to its full self-driving software beta as blah, blah, blah. The letters signal the NHTSA's increasing scrutiny of Tesla and its practices related to over-the-air software updates. Tesla vehicles come standard with driver assistance systems, which they call autopilot. For an additional $10,000, owners can buy full self-driving software that CEO Elon Musk has repeatedly promised will one day deliver fully autonomous driving capabilities. And however, the first letter, dated October 12th, asked Tesla to explain why the company didn't issue a recall when it used a software update to correct how its autopilot advanced driver assistance system detects emergency vehicles in low light conditions. And then the second letter, dated October 12th, addressed Tesla's use of non-disclosure agreements for its so-called full self-driving early access beta release program. Owners have already paid for full self-driving, but Tesla has required NDAs to access the beta software. Last month, Musk also instituted another requirement, a safety score that uses personal driving data to determine whether owners can access the latest beta version. Here's the quote. Given that NHTSA relies on reports from consumers, as an important source of information in evaluating potential safety defects, any agreement that may prevent or dissuade participants in the early access beta release program from reporting safety concerns to NHTSA is unacceptable, the agency wrote in the letter. Moreover, even limitations on sharing certain information publicly adversely impacts NHTSA's ability to obtain information relevant to safety. In order to ensure that non-disclosure agreements regarding the FSD early access beta release do not interfere with NHTSA's ability to exercise its oversight responsibilities, we are issuing the attached special order to Tesla.
It all makes perfect sense, Tyler. I mean, you have to report that.
The agency, however, is seeking more information and said Tesla has until November 1 to respond to both requests. Musk indicated on Twitter this week that Tesla would drop the NDA requirement. Very interesting. Very interesting. So the next one is, we just got a few left before we get into the tweets here. Reddit now lets subreddit moderators create prediction tournaments where participating users get 1,000 tokens to bet on different questions and make predictions. That's kind of a new interesting gamification coming to Reddit. And competitors are gaining on Huawei and Apple in the 5G equipment handset markets. US is catching up fast to China in 5G subscriptions per capita. Yes, because America and its allies have banned Huawei. So they're having a rough go, and it gives an advantage to Ericsson and Nokia. And so, yeah. Trip Actions, a business travel and expense management service, raises $275 million. Dexterity, which is developing a full stack service for collaborative warehouse robots, raises $140 million. And analyze in chat. Oh, this is a really interesting one. A company from Ohio called Aware, which analyzes internal company chats for legal compliance, sentiment, and more, raises $60 million, which is peculiar timing after the article yesterday from The Atlantic about how companies are struggling with these in the work from home or work anywhere world, where teams are now embracing tools like Slack, and Slack is enabling team members to gain access to information they normally didn't have access to, and these employee kind of activism uprisings are being kind of enabled due to these chat platforms and communication platforms that these companies are adopting. So this company, Aware, analyzes internal company chats for sentiment and more, meaning to find out if your team members are conspiring against you and going to have an activist uprising.
It's like leaving a bug at the water cooler.
The U.S. to host a 2-day ransomware virtual event with 30 countries, except Russia and China. Sources say Russia wasn't invited for a host of reasons, but we'll just have to leave that to our imagination. If somebody can find Sherlock Holmes to figure out why Russia's not invited to this ransomware virtual event hosted by the U.S. at the White House and 30 other countries, please do let us know. We would love to figure out why Russia wasn't invited to this ransomware summit that the rest of the major countries are all going to join.
Rest assured, they'll be there.
They'll be hiding under the sofa digitally. They'll be using their own tools to attend that event.
They'll be dressed up as the maintenance people, like the Iranians or whatever.
Nikkei Japan says they have sources that TSMC and Sony are planning a semiconductor factory in Japan opening in 2024, costing $7 billion, half of which will come from the Japanese government. Okay, so that is our big boring headlines of today. Let me refresh to see if there's any updates on the top stories. There's a boring one. Sources: Apple, 40. Nope. No big new ones.
Tyler,
Yes.
I haven't tweeted this yet because it's going to be a thread. But
One second.
remember how I
There
I keep on.
there's one new one just real quickly. A company called OHI, which offers e-commerce product delivery in under 20 minutes in New York, Chicago, San Francisco, and LA. It raises $19 million. So another 20-minute delivery company for the America's biggest cities. Go ahead.
Okay, this is a really fun one, but I like doing my crazy rabbit hole research. And you know that I've been stalking Energy Web in Europe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, Google's come out with a very interesting product just the other day called, you know how they have Nest?
Yes.
They've come out with Green Nest.
Okay.
Come down the rabbit hole with me.
Okay.
They actually are connected to Energy Web and are going to be using Google Cloud services to give back credits to people that do use the Green Nest product, which is connecting into Energy Web's grid of decentralized energy. Because they actually are working with RMI, Rocky Mountain Institute, Rocky Mountain Energy. It's RMI, and it's RMI. You could, I'll set the thread up.
I got it. Yeah.
But the interesting part about it is that RMI also is connected to Energy Web.
Okay. So
it's a very deep it's a deep rabbit hole of how Google Cloud and Google are going to start looking at rewarding people for decentralized energy usage, like offsetting energy by using green energy, and having their Nest product that's in the homes now actually be able to have you track how much clean energy you're using and how much you're wasting, so that you can monitor your own apartment through the Green Nest equipment.
got it. So at the
And another one connected, Tyler, just on this connected one, I was just booking flight on the Google Flights, and I noticed there is a new thing, a new column right there, which actually tells you exactly what the emission for that particular flight is. And they are like literally, hundreds of flights, and each one of them actually telling you which one is the less carbon emission one. So that's already in the Google Flight. So, yeah.
Okay, so the Energy Web, which started in 2017.
Correct.
Is it all about creating a greener, decentralized
Yes.
energy system?
Yes, and they've been working on it in Europe.
And
remember all those countries I told you about?
And RMI is one of the co-founders.
Yes, and RMI is connected to Energy Web.
Yeah, it says they're one of the co-founders, an independent nonprofit founded in 1982, transform global energy use to create a clean, prosperous, and secure low-carbon future.
Correct.
And so Google's now making devices that play friendly with it.
Correct, but they've given RMI $1 million of a grant.
Mm-hmm.
So they are actually more deeper entrenched with Energy Web than it may look on the surface, is what I was trying to articulate, even in that little bit of a rabbit hole spiral.
And the reason you're interested in it in part is because another one of the co-founders of Energy Web is called Grid Singularity, is a world-leading blockchain technology developer in the energy sector. Founders and key staff include core Ethereum blockchain developers, experienced energy executives, etc., and energy regulators. And so this is essentially empowered through Ethereum or blockchain.
And also the fact that it's in Europe, and as you said, Europe has a problem with energy.
Yeah.
And they need to fix that problem.
Yeah.
And by fixing the problem, they have to find a way to decentrally use their energy. Because, like, for example, in the simplest way possible, a lot of the buildings in Amsterdam have solar panels on top of them. And they're compensating people that live in those apartment buildings by giving them credits against their bill for electric. Okay? But let's say I don't use my allotment of my electric. Someone else could use it, and I paid 10 euros, but someone else may pay 100. But the allotment doesn't go to waste because it goes to another apartment. So so when you look at those solar grids, the way they have them in the buildings in the flats in Amsterdam, they're actually making them that the solar panels on the roof distribute energy to the whole building as a whole, and people take from that energy within the apartment and they control it inside their apartment's unit.
So this is what I do. Sorry, just to interrupt here. I mean, I don't know the partnership with EnergyWeb, but Google recently announced also funding for Uplight Technologies, which takes a non-blockchain approach to integrating these types of technologies, and that's again with Boulder, Colorado. So I mean, Google is over loads of energy partnerships with the big energy companies, the utilities in the US, and also across Europe. But they don't need this technology to do that.
Yeah, just to clarify, because I've been studying blockchain for about 4 years now, you can have blockchain and centralized. You can have permissionless and permissioned blockchains operate together, because you can have a private blockchain. So the word is just kind of hippy dippy in my opinion to the way people are using it. All I'm basically describing is that you have permissionless and non-permissionless chains, and you'll have private and public chains. And of course, if they're dealing in energy, it would have to be public and transparent, because they're dealing with the public and they're dealing with people's houses and they're dealing with societies and urban planning and civil engineering. So of course, they're a large behemoth of an organization. They're going to have money in many places. However, they are also innovating. And that was the main aspect, is that they're innovating with this particular company that has been around since 2017, 4 years ago, when a lot of people, that's when they first started stepping into this space, because they saw the run up of Bitcoin. They were not necessarily stepping in because they wanted to see how the disruption of the innovation in Web3 could help. They were just jumping in because they wanted to make money. But those people that are in here earlier will also see that this technology can disrupt some areas, not all, but some areas where there's a centralized grip. And the centralized grip makes it very, very hard for countries to be able to navigate, being able to provide certain services to their people.
Right.
And in Europe, it's a challenge because of the fact that it's getting expensive for them to get their energy in, as Tyler has stated, with Russia and all this other stuff. And they do have a
the
pipeline.
demand response is definitely a key here. So I agree with that. But again, for balance, I mean, I know Jeff Hamill, I know Peyton Dobbs, who basically lead the whole of the Nest Energy Drive. They've never really talked to me about sort of implementing blockchain technology within their solutions. I mean, they have the LEAF program, which is sort of rolled out across Northern America and Canada and some utilities in Europe, that encourages basically households to be more energy efficient, to use their products. So principally the Nest thermostat, to enable more efficient use within heating. And they incentivize that, so try to gamify that as well. But yeah, and again, I see there is value in using a distributed ledger, but probably not for transactions. It's probably more for tracking assets, so smart meters or distributed energy resources. Yeah, again, it's just for balance. So I mean, he's obviously saying this company's backed by Google. Is I don't think that's the case.
Actually, I said that they were given $1 million grant, to be clear.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Next up, we're getting into the tweets here. Poppy found this one from PBS, Public Broadcasting System, that Americans quit their jobs at a record pace in August. The Labor Department said that quits jumped 4.3 million in August, the highest on records, dating back to December 2000. So in the past 21 years, wow. It's a whole lot of job quitting. And then you can add all of the gig workers as well this weekend. You're going to have 70% of the Instacart team members resigning as well. William Shatner AI bot will chat with you about the Star Trek actor's life. You've got questions? Shatner's bot has answers. Here come the celebrity bots you can chat with. And the next one is from Poppy, that Las Vegas to try its luck on a citywide digital twin. Digital twins are rapidly becoming vital to how cities are run. To help it move to a zero carbon emissions, the gambling city of Las Vegas has decided to create a digital twin of itself. And indeed, that is, I've had those conversations with Stockholm, and Capgemini of all is really selling that to a lot of cities. And it's kind of interesting because it potentially could be very useful in the metaverse, or if the city is going to go through the process of making digital twins of itself. Yeah, you could go to the digital twin version of Vegas in the metaverse
as a licensable technology.
Yeah, that's one of the more interesting conversations I've had. Was a friend of mine who's a real estate tech guru made it clear that all of the architects who've designed all of the buildings on the planet over the past several decades, and in the past 15 years or so, all of that architectural work was done in computers anyways. So they could then sell those buildings digitally as NFTs into the metaverse. And even many of them have designed cities already. A lot of cities are already done digitally in computers. So the next one is from Poppy. Hong Kong to tackle its impossible housing market, and boy is it, with 1 million homes in northern metropolis. Hong Kong aims to create a new city, ultimately extending over 300 square kilometers, with almost 1 million new homes for about 2.5 million of Hong Kong's 7.5 million population. Hong Kong's chief executive Carrie Lam today unveiled plans to tackle the city's unaffordable housing by building a quote-unquote northern metropolis on its border with Shenzhen. What a surprise. So, for those who haven't had the pleasure of visiting Hong Kong, people live in boxes the size of refrigerators. They have the world's smallest apartments. Is truly remarkable, and it's very expensive but yet there's an absurd amount of green space in Hong Kong. But despite what you might think, Hong Kong is incredibly green. Holy shit, is there a lot of green space in Hong Kong? Beautiful.
And it's one of the most fantastic cities in the world, in my opinion. I would live there in a second.
Yeah, and they have some incredible beaches, believe it or not. Like Repulse Bay, Discovery Bay. Holy shit, those are beautiful beaches in one of the world's biggest cities. So you've got the densest of metropolises, and yet these rolling green hills, some of the most beautiful hiking on the planet. So they are very strict with allowing development, and that's why the buildings are so unbelievably high. But they need to make more living space. So that's what this is all about. And they're going to build a whole new city on the border of Shenzhen, which makes all the sense in the world. And the plan is to create a new city. That's what the article says. The economic basis of the metropolis will be they're going to go big. They have to. So the next one is from Shirok. The Cardano founder, Charles Hoskinson, to tour Africa. Cardano has focused its attention on projects which are building on the blockchain, and this is because, it's a very long article explaining why he's interested in Africa, but I think a lot of the crypto folks around the world see Africa in a very interesting context. Tina shares this one from...
So why sorry,
Can I?
Tyler, why does he see interest in Africa?
Let's click it and find out here. I'll read a bit of it. He says...
If I can say something, Tyler,
sure.
before you
There's
start
so
reading?
many unbanked.
Well, that's
but
one point.
but
May I
first
say something, guys?
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
no,
I
so
mean, but firstly, you've got to if you're going to do that, then you've
Simon,
got to
hold
Simon,
on.
say.
let Faraz speak.
For
Let Faraz go
God's
first,
sake,
Simon.
man. Jesus Christ. Thank you, Simon. No, the first thing, a lot of people take a liking to Charles because he actually runs multiple channels together, and he actually opens up to the people a lot more than most of the other founders of various projects do. So he's running his own YouTube channel. He's speaking to people. He's kind of like Tyler and Cal, and in the way that they approach um, the various people in this club and maintain relations with them and continuously are available to them to talk and so on and so forth. Secondly, Cardano Foundation and Cardano are two separate organizations, although with the same founder. But they're literally two separate organizations. Frederic is the founder, is the CEO of Cardano Foundation, and their work is to do with nothing to do with the cryptocurrency. They're funding projects for good, and their work is to spread the good word of blockchain technology and how blockchain can be applied for better. So, for example, how you can take blockchain, use it for NGOs, how you can give back to people, how you can use it for climate change, and so on and so forth. My opinion, and some of the things that I can't talk about on the stage on account of NDAs, etc., to put very simply, is he's actually doing a very, very good job in Africa, au contraire to popular belief to a lot of people who say that he's not doing things. He's doing some great things down there for the indigenous, and also in terms of climate change, in terms of helping people, creating jobs by, for example, uh, planting trees, by doing the best they can in terms of bringing in foreign wealth to put into the most into the lesser developed nations of the world to use for climate benefit. Does that kind of summarize it without me? Yeah, I didn't breach an NDA there. Tyler, does that kind of put it for you?
I guess, yeah, I was just going to read a bit of this article. It says Africa, a Cardano Africa tour. Africa has proven itself to be a breeding ground for innovative crypto technology, and founder Charles wants to tap into this climate, putting an end to the 2-week social media break, which he had announced after the end of the Cardano summit. He tweeted his plans for the future. He says, just got back from Wyoming and I'm ready for this upcoming week, heading to Africa soon, starting in South Africa all the way up to Egypt. Let's go change the world together. The founder announced his plans alongside a tweet. He plans to meet with startups building on the Cardano network and, with help from his team, provide what they might need in the way of financial or educational help. Okay, Simon.
No, that's what I needed to know. Thank you.
He's starting in South Africa. Give him a call. So the next one is from Poppy. From Wired, there's another global pandemic is spreading among pigs. African swine fever killed half the pigs in China recently. There's no vaccine and there's no treatment. Now it's the Caribbean. Now it's in the Caribbean and on the doorstep of the U.S.
Fucking A, it's killer bacon.
And next is from Shirok. Oh, that's the Cardano one. Oh, this is crazy. Tina just found this one from San Francisco Chronicle. The latest poll from San Francisco Chronicle finds what we could play our favorite game here. They asked Bay Area residents if they plan to leave for good in the near future. And the question is, what percent of Bay Area, that's San Francisco Bay Area, from San Jose up to, north of the Bay Area, like Sausalito and whatnot. What percent of Bay Area residents, including Silicon Valley, are expecting to move or leave for good? So, where's my Jeopardy? Here we go. What percent of
half? 40.
Ah, shit, I already tweeted it. God damn it. You cheated. Poll finds more than half of the Bay Area residents plan to leave for good.
Where did they want to go?
To
Mexico.
Yeah, a couple
you
years.
You think half of a population is going to move out? Come on, Tyler. I mean, I'm not saying you, but I'm calling BS on the article.
Yeah, it's from San Francisco Chronicle. So let's see what
It's clickbait because we're going to stay here. Actually, if it clears out, I'll have more space.
Yeah, you go
Just
buy another
change,
house.
just change the governor, right?
the San Jose think tank called Joint Venture Silicon Valley found a majority of residents actually planning to leave the region in the next few years, around 56%, or more than 1,600 people surveyed in 5 counties. That compares to a broader pre-pandemic poll in all 9 Bay Area counties by Business Group, which in 2018 found that 46% of residents consider moving away. So it's gone up from 46% to 56% in the past 3 years,
Well, did the
saying that they plan to
46%
leave.
actually leave?
Yeah.
Did the 46% actually leave? Because it's been 3 years now.
I haven't noticed it.
I don't think so
Tyler,
either.
but how many people have come in to California?
Yep.
Not more than 46%.
Coming into California?
No, I mean the population is growing and it's impossible to find a house, but it's not because half the people left and more than half entered.
Oh
It's
no,
just
I
that
was just saying,
data is BS.
I was just asking how many people are coming in. Because I know from Europe there's a lot of people that are like really wanting to move to California, like
Oh, totally.
completely.
Yes.
I
Yes.
want to say the reality was that, in the last few years, maybe 8 to 10% left, something in that range.
So the next one from Poppy. Physicists announced the world's most precise measurement of neutron lifetime. An international team of physicists led by the researchers at Indiana University Bloomington have announced the world's most precise measurement of the neutron.
Just one phenomenal university.
Okay, next up is from Shirok. That it asks the question: is DeFi at war with traditional finance, and should TradeFi be scared? Decentralized finance may look like it's consuming TradeFi, writes Will Hamilton, but here's why one won't survive without the other. Okay, and then Poppy found another very interesting one, that an AI has been used to reproduce a lost Picasso. A painting of a naked woman by Pablo Picasso that has been hidden beneath one of his Blue Period masterpieces for more than a century has been reproduced by an AI. And gotta say, it looks pretty convincing. The next one's from Poppy, from BBC. Apple shares drop on reports of iPhone 13 chip shortages, reporting that Apple could produce up to 10 million fewer iPhones due to the chip shortage. And also from BBC, a plant with seeds that can grow meat in the Icelandic greenhouse barley is being grown, which could help produce meat without animals. A protein in the seeds called a growth factor is harvested, milled, and purified before it can be used. Seeds from genetically modified barley plants are being used in a process which creates lab-grown meat. And here's a second related article. Scientists genetically modify plants to grow meat protein. Researchers in Iceland are growing over 100,000 barley plants for a very unusual goal, growing lab-grown meat.
This is like vegan meat, like such an oxymoron.
Maybe not. It might be actually genetically beef.
Good lord.
They're using the growth factor proteins, which in turn can be used to cultivate lab-grown meat, an innovation that could make the lab-grown meat industry rely even less on live animals in the future. The company behind the greenhouse is growing biogenetically engineered barley. The growth factors extracted from the barley seeds play an important role in the maintenance of stem cells. And so they're growing beef from stem cells, beef stem cells. So it's actually beef. It's not a plant alternative of beef. It's actual beef cells taken from cows that they then grow in a lab. But part of the recipe comes from the growth factor proteins in wheat barley.
So if I can take a stab at this,
Sure.
um, it's been common practice to grow uh, mammalian cells in culture for a long time. However, in order to do that, they've needed to use some kind of animal serum. Typically, fetal bovine serum is like a really commonly used one. And so the thing is that, the cells can be grown in a lab dish or in a factory, but if you need to bleed a cow or a cow fetus, then you're not really vegan. And it's been a challenge for a long time. And this isn't just important for cellular agriculture; it's also important for research. If you can get fully synthetic growth medium, you can get rid of a lot of inconsistency issues in cell culture, because it's you try to follow the same protocol over and over exactly as possible, but when you're extracting stuff from animals, there are going to be huge variations all the time. Well, I shouldn't say huge, but there are going to be variations, and sometimes problems can be traced back to those variations. And so obviously that's one thing. I mean, obviously, for cellular agriculture, if you want to have no animals, you can't do that. You've got to figure out everything that the growth medium needs. And if they've really done what this sounds like, this is quite a breakthrough. But I would have to look at it, and maybe in a couple of days I can comment more intelligently or more with better information on this.
Okay, the next one from Bloomberg: Apple CEOs, a former Apple employee alleges that the company-wide memo from CEO Tim Cook saying that people who leak confidential information do not belong at Apple violated labor laws. And we read that memo about a month ago when it was when
Leaked.
that when it was leaked. Yeah. So Apple's CEO's anti-leak memo broke the law. Ex-employee alleges. How could that be? Oh, it's our old friend Ashley Gjovic. I should have known.
Hey.
Ashley's back in the news, everybody. Well done, Ashley. Ashley Gjovic, fired from Apple last month, files a new NLRB complaint. CEO Tim Cook warned employees that Apple was pursuing leakers. Apple's restrictive employee handbook rules and Chief Executive Officer Tim Cook's recent pledge to punish leakers both violate U.S. law, according to new complaints that a fired activist filed with the National Labor Relations Board. In filings Tuesday, former Apple employee Ashley Gjovic alleged that a September all-staff email from Cook saying that people who leak confidential information does not belong here violated the National Labor Relations Act, which protects U.S. workers' rights to communicate with one another and engage in collective action about workplace issues. Cook wrote that Apple was, quote unquote, doing everything in our power to identify those who leaked, and, quote unquote, we do not tolerate disclosures of confidential information, whether it's product IP or the details of a confidential meeting. His email followed media reports about a company-wide internal meeting the prior week at which management fielded questions about topics such as pay, equity, and Texas anti-abortion law. Gjovic's filings also challenge what she says are several policies in Apple's employee handbook that illegally interfere with workers' rights, including restrictions on disclosing business information, talking to reporters, revealing coworkers' compensation, and posting impolite tweets. Apple did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Gjovic, a senior engineer program manager, was fired by Apple in September after filing complaints with the state and federal agencies, including the U.S. Occupational Safety and Health Administration. In documents shared by Gjovic, Apple claimed she was terminated for violating policies such as the disclosure of confidential product information. Gjovic has said she was fired in retaliation for her prior complaints, which alleged that after voicing fears about workplace health hazards, she was harassed, humiliated, and asked not to tell coworkers about her concerns. Claims filed with the NLRB are investigated by regional officials who, if they find merit in the allegations and can't secure a settlement, then issue a complaint on behalf of the Labor Board's general counsel. That is then considered by an agency judge. Those judges' rulings can be appealed by the NLRB members in Washington and then to a federal court. The agency has the authority to order companies to change illegal policies and inform employees about their rights, but generally can't hold executives personally liable for alleged wrongdoing or issue a punitive damage. Complaints like Giovik's stand a stronger chance of success now that Democratic appointees with union backgrounds run the NLRB's General Counsel office and make up the majority of the Labor Board's members, thanks to President Joe Biden's appointments this year. Employee handbook rules are one of many issues where the agency's new General Counsel, Jennifer Abruzzo, has signaled she's interested in challenging Trump-era precedents. The rule described in Cook's memo and the policies cited in Giovik's complaint might be deemed legitimate under the Trump-era Boeing standard, but most, if not all of them, would probably be illegal under earlier, more pro-labor precedents, says University of Wyoming law professor and former NLRB attorney Michael Duff. A case like Giovik's offers the Biden appointees an attractive vehicle to establish a precedent more like the pre-Trump ones, which prohibited rules that workers could reasonably construe as banning legally protected activism, Duff said in an email. The current Labor Board is very likely to deem statements in Cook's memo illegal, said former NLB member Wilma Liebman, who chaired the agency under President Barack Obama. What he's saying here goes too far. By limiting discussion about meetings where workplace issues are addressed, rather than only leaks about intellectual property, Liebman said in an interview, it's restrictive of people's ability to talk about employment policies. Giovik, who's in law school, said in an interview that she's hopeful her case could help Biden's NLRB appointees establish a new, more pro-labor precedent, as well as advancing workplace organizing at Apple by disrupting the company's culture of secrecy. Ultimately, she said, we're never going to see any systemic change at Apple without empowering the employees to feel comfortable speaking out as they are legally protected to do. The next one from Saudamini Kumar from Indian Express. In a rocky crater in Israel, scientists simulate life on Mars. A team of 6, 5 men and 1 woman, have begun simulating what it will be like to live for about a month on Mars, inside of a crater in Israel. Okay. And a huge leak reveals Google's plans to take on Apple One with what they're calling Pixel Pass. Leak reveals a new subscription program from Google called Pixel Pass that includes access to multiple services and a new Pixel phone. And Shahin, what is Exascale Day all about? The Exascale era.
Exascale. Oh, yes, thank you. So Exa is 10 to the power of 18, and October 18th, therefore, the 10th month of the year and the 18th day, was registered back in 2019 as the National Exascale Day. Now, exascale is referring to exaflops, floating point operations. That's a quintillion operations per second, and the supercomputers that can do that sort of a computation are typically about 1 million times more powerful than an average laptop. Some folks did calculations, and it takes Niagara Falls something like 40,000 years to generate that many gallons of water over the thing. So it's a really large number. And it is the next significant milestone in supercomputing, and it's what Department of Energy, and there's in fact a global race towards who will have the first exascale supercomputer. And it looks like 2022 will be when we can achieve that. So it's become a thing now after a few years, and a lot of people celebrate this in the supercomputing world. This is like, think geeky stuff and multiply it by the factor of 10 to the 18. It's really pretty cool from that standpoint. So that's what's happening on Monday, the National Exascale Day.
Okay, thank you for that. So Shirok sends in this one from New Scientist that AI-generated deepfake voices can fool both humans and smart assistants. So they can now fake themselves. Deepfake tools that mimic a particular individual's voice from just a few snippets of audio are good enough to trick humans and bypass voice assistants.
This is just your hourly reminder why Chris uses a burner phone on on Clubhouse.
Okay, and next up.
But that won't help.
Chris, you can record it and ask Tyler to put in one of his buttons.
So Twitter rolls out a new advertising features and revamped algorithm. Twitter said it's working on new tools to let companies run advertisements to find customers who are more likely to make in-app purchases. That's really interesting because, yeah, Facebook is losing a bit of that out. So Twitter on Tuesday rolled out the new advertising feature and revamped the algorithm that decides which advertisements users see. As part of an effort to lay the groundwork to launch future e-commerce features. Oh, in Twitter, they're going to do e-commerce? Really? Wow, what would they call that? Like social commerce or something? That would be wild, wouldn't it? I wonder if that's huge in China. Anybody know? So there it is. Twitter's getting ready for the future e-commerce features. The social network company told Reuters. Oh, Twitter told Reuters that they're working on launching future e-commerce features. Oh, really? Who would have predicted that? The new features come as Twitter is pushing to grow its performance advertising business, a strategy that aims to quickly generate sales and constituted just 15% of Twitter's business last year. The effort could help Twitter reach its goal of doubling annual revenue by 2023. That's only 2 years away. Doubling revenue in 2 years? Here comes social commerce, everybody. You might want to check out that Twitter stock if you didn't 6 months ago when I told people this was coming. The San Francisco-based company is positioning itself to eventually allow brands to sell products through the service of Twitter by first improving on its ability to show users relevant advertisements and increasing the likelihood that they'll click on the advertisement, because if they can optimize the algorithms to match people with what they're willing to click on, that's going to become super, super handy technology when they're trying to match products with people to sell, because they're going to e-commerceify Twitter. It's going to become an e-commerce platform like Amazon. And they're going to make it really easy to make really simple, cute little Twitter stores in Twitter to upload your products simply by scanning the barcode on the product. Boom, it's in your little store to sell. How many do you have? 50. Great. Go. Now, they're going to have to match the people who might want your products that you're selling, because you only have 300 followers, because you're not an influencer, but you want to sell a whole lot of bags. So they match the people who they think might want your products with your products. Performance enhancements are a very large opportunity that's relatively untapped for us, says the group product manager at Twitter in an interview. Ultimately, this is going to lead to people installing apps, visiting websites, and finding products that meet their needs. Advertisements promoting downloads for mobile games and other apps, which are a major type of advertisement on social media sites, will now allow users to initiate the download without leaving the Twitter app. Oh, so you're going to be buying stuff in Twitter without leaving Twitter, huh? Twitter added it's working on new tools to let companies run advertisements to find customers who are more likely to make in-app purchases. Slideshow advertisements that feature multiple products can now send users to different websites when they click the advertisement, whereas previously brands could only choose one destination. Twitter also improved the advertising algorithm, showing the advertisements to a larger pool of people at the beginning of each campaign. Those algorithm improvements led to a 36% increase in advertising campaigns that achieved at least 5 downloads during the time period, blah, blah, blah. So here comes Twitter e-commerce.
It'll be really interesting to see how the various platforms implement e-commerce and social commerce. So Twitter, you've just described, Facebook, was with Facebook Live. Apparently, Amazon Live rolled out in the U.S. this week, and it's been comical. Watching it from behind the scenes, as some of my US based friends they've been following these, self-made pseudo influencers. One of my friends said she watched this woman in her living room for an hour, right? So that's more at the micro level, where people can just say, hey, this is what I bought, and if they do it right, they're kind of entertaining. So it'll just be interesting to see how each of the platforms caters, to their various audiences, all under the guise of social commerce.
Okay. Next up, here we go.
Tyler, I think Jay was going to say something.
Okay, go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, I just want to say, like, it depends on reach for which platform, I guess. Because if you look at TikTok, right, I know TikTok is part of like a bigger ecosystem with ByteDance, and they have Lark, so they can actually translate what they're saying. So let's say if someone from a different country that speaks a different language, just think about the reach in terms of like selling for that, um, seller, right, social seller. So I'm not sure if the other platforms have figured it out, but that's something to consider as well.
Cool. So, Amazon to provide 20,000 digital devices to underprivileged youth. The e-commerce company launches something they call Delivering Smiles initiative to bridge the digital divide. And the question is, how long will it take for journalists to find some nefarious, scheme inside of there? And there might be. I mean, Amazon's got a little work to do to improve its image after that India. Oh, and this is interesting. Oh, wait a minute. It was just leaked in the past 24 hours. By the way, this campaign is exclusively in India, where Amazon's going to give 20,000 digital devices to in India. And it's very interesting. In the past 24 hours, there was quite an interesting popular article that Amazon has been using all of the data in India to steal the top selling items and produce their own, where they even go directly to the manufacturer of those devices and say, hey, why don't you make them directly for Amazon? We would like you to make those for us because someone else is selling that item and they're very popular on our platform. So fuck them, make it for us. And whoever that person who's making a living selling that item on our platform can just go fuck themselves. Sound good? Would you like, hey, you sound like you look like you're kind of unclear. How does this sound? Does that sound good? I thought you'd like that sound. Go ahead and make it for us, and then fuck all those people who are selling on our platform. Cool, right? So that was revealed yesterday. That leak that they've been doing that in India. And what do you know, Joe? Amazon decides to give 20,000 digital devices to underprivileged youth in India. 24 hours later, coincidence? What do we think? We think that's just a coincidence?
It's karma balance.
Sundamini, what do you...
It's called quick thinking.
It's called flooding the zone.
Actually, they have a brand called Amazon Basics. So you can
So Damini, we can't hear you.
Amazon. Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Am I audible now? Okay. Sorry, I was getting a red bar. So Amazon.in, if you log into the website, and supposing you're a consumer who wants a USB cable, so they'll give you USB cable options for many resellers. Of course, the Apple branded ones and the non-branded ones. And then they'll say, Amazon recommends Amazon Basics. So that will be printed on the cable itself. And Amazon Basics is a brand they're selling in India for sure. So they're already doing that. And you're right. Now they go do charity to clean their karma, like Neda said.
So you think it's a karma campaign?
Welcome to the Karma Club.
Okay. Next up, Telegram. This is from Nalormi, also from India. That this article from Wired UK says Telegram is crawling with anti-Semitism. New research shows that Telegram has a major problem with anti-Jewish extremism. Why won't the platform take action? Well, because it's not a curated platform. It's It's like a telecommunication app. They don't do curation or moderation. It's just purely SMS, essentially. In the past few months, Telegram has been skyrocketing in popularity, hitting 550 million monthly active users, which makes it the fifth most used messaging app in the world. Amid a wave of government-mandated internet shutdowns washing over the world, the app has also been praised for its resistance to censorship. Yeah, they don't censor anything. They're an SMS app. They don't care what you're saying. It's like a telephone call, but in text. And its role is helping protesters from Belarus to Myanmar organize. But Telegram's libertarian ethos has a darker side, says anti-racism advocacy group Hope Not Hate. The app is one of the vilest cesspits of anti-Semitism you could find on the internet. And the problem is growing worse by the day. The new report from Hope Not Hate focused on the spread of anti-Semitism online and due to be published in full tomorrow, has found that Telegram is foremost among major internet platforms for providing a safe haven for anti-Semites and extremists who have been booted from other social networks. This notably includes believers and peddlers of QAnon and the anti-Semitism suffused conspiracy theory linked to the January 6th storming of the Capitol. If you compare this in action to how Telegram has dealt with the Islamic extremism and terrorism, it is night and day difference, says Patrick Hermanson, a researcher with Hope Not Hate. In 2019, the app removed more than 43,000 bots and channels linked to the Islamic State terror group as part of a Europol operation. Hermanson claims that some of the anti-Semitic content shared on Telegram amounts to terror advocacy and should be cracked down accordingly. Okay. So the next one is from Sundamini from CNET, that scientists estimate that 85% of the world's population is affected by climate change. Over 60,000 studies were crunched by researchers in Germany using machine learning, and the findings aren't comforting. Climate change is going to get a lot worse if we don't act soon. While that's not breaking news, it was the thrust of a landmark report by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change released in August. A new paper published by the journal Natural Climate Change on October 11th adds some specificity to that forecast. Using machine learning technology to analyze over 60,000 climate change-related studies, researchers in Germany estimate that 85% of the population on the planet is affected by human-induced climate change. The study was led by Max Callaghan of Berlin's Research Institute on Global Commons and Climate Change. There's an overwhelming evidence that the impacts on climate change are already being observed in human and natural systems. We infer that attributable anthropogenic impacts may be occurring across 80% of the world's land area, where 85% of the population reside. Okay. So the next one is from Sudamini from CNET, that astronomers discover extraordinary unknown radio signal from the heart of the Milky Way. And maybe this has something to do with Havana syndrome. Maybe it's the aliens, Chris. Across a vast desert plains of Western Australia, on the lands of the Wajari Yamatiji people, lies the most capable radio telescope array in the world, containing 36 dish antennas. The Australian Square Kilometre Array Pathfinder, ASCAP, is an eye to the universe. The 36 antennas watch for radio waves that crash over the Earth. Over the last 2 years, the antennas have on occasion been pointed toward the heart of the Milky Way, our home galaxy, and on occasion they've detected a highly unusual radio signal, one that does not seem to fit with any object we currently know is lurking in the cosmos. The detection of the signal appears in the Astrophysical Journal on October 12th. It was the first published as a preprint in September. The name of the strange signal is a mouthful. We're going to call it the Ghost. It's a crazy, crazy scientific mix of letters and numbers. Between April 2019 and August 2020, the Ghost was spotted 13 times, but without any consistent timing. It exhibits a range of characteristics that make it highly unusual and unlike other radio sources from the depths of the Milky Way. Here's the quote. The object was unique in that it started out invisible, became bright, faded away, and then reappeared, says an astrophysicist at the University of Sydney and co-author of the paper. The behavior was extraordinary. Originally, the team thought the radio signal might be emanating from a pulsar, a kind of neutron star that is incredibly dense and throws off electromagnetic radiation while spinning rapidly in space. The team went searching for a pulsar using the telescope at the observatory. They came up empty. Further searches through data obtained by NASA found no X-rays associated with the signal, and data from the telescope in Chile also showed no infrared signal. The ghost left little trace. Interesting how they were using other facilities around the world to try and find the source of it. In an attempt
Can I
to
say something?
Yeah, let me just read a bit more. In an attempt to hunt down the ghost, the team turned to the Meerkat array in South Africa, which is very similar to ASCAP in Australia, with double the antennas. Listening in with Meerkat, the signal reappeared. But the ghost had morphed into something new. No longer was the radio signal lasting for weeks, it now disappeared within a day. This irregular buzzing is one confusing aspect of the discovery. But perhaps the most unusual feature is the ghost's circular polarization. Polarization relates to how the radio wave moves through space and time. We're not going to get into it here, but this entry in Wikipedia is actually good at explaining it. What you need to know is circular polarization is a rare phenomenon in the cosmos, making this radio signal rather interesting. Here's a quote.
Yeah, it's very unlikely that it's natural. Sorry.
Much less than 1% of sources are circularly polarized, says Ziteng Wang, a doctoral student at University of Sydney, Australia, and first author on the study, adding, usually polarized sources are associated with magnetic fields. Potentially the magnetic field of an object is messing with the radio signal on its way to Earth. That might be something as common as a dusty debris field, or it could be something else entirely. Go ahead, Shane.
So this is very much relevant to this exascale that we were talking about, and I just want to provide some stats on this square kilometer array. It is the world's largest radio telescope. It will eventually be over a square kilometer. There are 14 member countries, the two sites you mentioned in South Africa and Australia, but I believe there's also a site in the Netherlands, if I'm not mistaken. There are like two supercomputers, each of which is about 100 plus petaflops. That's 1/10 of the exaflop we were talking about. And these things are like really a few $100 million each, these systems. Just to give you an indication, there's something like 30 Cray supercomputer cabinets that just process the data as it comes. It's 100 terabits per second of streaming data constantly. They throw away a lot of it, and they archive 600 petabytes of data per year. It is just out of this world. And if you look at the picture of it, it's just incredible. So something to marvel at. Just a great news for humanity that stuff like this happens.
So you're going to need like the new MacBook Pro that's coming out next week.
Yeah, like a million of them.
Yeah, like you're going to need like an M2 processor or something.
Right on.
So, yeah, I'm curious though, if all of these researchers who are hearing these signals, have they all been vaccinated?
They were actually away because there are a few supercomputer centers around, and they were all working from home for a good while.
Let me guess, they took the Moderna and the Pfizer, right?
Oh, I don't know. There's the closest one in Australia is the Pawsey Supercomputer Center on the west coast of Australia.
Let's go ahead and do a little investigation, find out if they got the mRNA vaccines.
I wouldn't know. Yeah.
So the next one is from Shirok, that the International Monetary Fund warns that stablecoins could pose a contagion risk to the global financial system. IMF warns stablecoins could pose contagion risk to global financial systems.
Talking about Tether, I suppose.
Well, that's the largest of the stable coins, and if it turns out that thing's backed by a bunch of Chinese paper that's now worthless, we could find ourselves in a little interesting moment here in crypto land.
Oh, the dollar is fine on
Yeah. It's
stable
not about
coins.
the
There are
dollar.
several.
Yeah.
No, but my point is that unlike other countries that need a central bank digital currency to achieve a stable coin offering, in the US there are already a half a dozen private ones.
Hey, Tyler,
Yes.
I've got some. I'm not sure if it qualifies as breaking news or not, but
Okay.
going back to this subject of the Chivo wallet. Um, yeah, I think I disclosed that it was this company in the U.S., BitGo, that offers the infrastructure, software infrastructure behind it. But it turns out that um, the government of El Salvador is the holder of every user's keys, private keys. So it's a custodial wallet. So the government would A, be subject to hacking, and B, could rehypothecate people's Bitcoin, lend it out to others, which would be a sort of a conflict of interest.
So the government does hold the keys?
Yes.
Oh shit, that is some crazy news.
This was it. This was the scary part right there.
Oh wow. So can you walk us through how you track this down?
It's via a tweet that from a very, I've looked at this guy, he looks pretty reputable. I replied to him and I put the Tech News Around the World address on that, so you should get it. But yeah, so it says in this instance of El Salvador as the third party custodian. Non-custodian wallets are optional, but the government hopes that the initial gift of $30 worth of Bitcoin will entice many to use the Chivo wallet. The result is a centralized custodial BTC exchange in El Salvador.
Oh, so the government controls all the coins.
Right. So, like a bank, the custodial exchange can lend out other users'
How is this
funds.
not in the news headline
How
yet?
is this not making major headlines? I don't understand.
But
So
now,
they're
the
going to try
one
to do
key thing,
fractional reserve. They can do fractional reserve banking off of Bitcoin now.
yeah.
You
But the
mean
one,
Yeah,
you have
that's
high hopes of that guy?
anyways, like I was saying, Chris, you actually just kind of nailed it on the head but the part of it that's the discerning part, which is what Tyler and I are referring to be quite clear and direct, is the fact that people are being asked to trust that wallet because they're not as well educated enough to understand the security of keys. And that's the challenge, because this is where it's becoming quite an interesting situation, because many of the Bitcoin maxis went down there. And if they went down there to educate people on the space and the safety, then why would they have not caught it first? That's my question.
Hey, can you
what
explain it a little bit better for those of us who are on the short bus on this particular
Sure.
topic?
I'll give a stab. So crypto, like Bitcoin, well, let's just keep it real simple. Bitcoin, when you purchase Bitcoins, I think Ben would be best in describing this. He's really
You need to have
I
two,
can
you
give a
need to have
stab
two
at it.
you need to have two sets of keys in order
Yeah.
to get it. And you
It,
hold your private keys, and that's what makes you sovereign, or that makes what owns your money, right? But if a third party has those keys, then they too have the accessibility to your money as well. It's like the bank having your private PIN number to access your bank account.
Oh no, it'd be like the government having your PIN number in
It's
this
Yeah,
like
case.
exactly.
the
It's like
best
the
analogy.
government. Yeah,
The best analogy is this: it's like if everyone still kept their money under the mattress,
pretty much.
having access to that money at any time to be
Mm,
able to lend it out without the owner knowing.
I really like Amay's PIN code example, because a PIN code,
Sorry, that was a dumb.
it kind of helps people understand, because that's what they're familiar with. And your PIN code is a key. Actually, that's it is. That's
Yeah, behind
it's a
Tyler,
password.
when we go to the bank,
Yeah.
when we go to the bank, they don't have that key. That's why they ask us to put our PIN
Right.
card, our card
Yep.
at the bank teller,
Yes.
because they don't have it.
Right.
But the cheekiness that I'm seeing here has nothing to do with the passive aggressive like behaviors of how people believe maxis and it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the fact that as a Hispanic woman, this president, this leader of the country wants to help the people. The part of it that's interesting is that he did bank the people. 76% of El Salvador did not have bank accounts. He
Right,
did
but just
bank them.
let's stay focused on the
Yeah,
description, which is
yeah.
your
The PIN code and
password
the
that
card.
for your bank account or your 4-digit or 6-digit PIN or whatever it is. That's a key. And in Bitcoin land, the same thing exists. The difference is it's not 4 or 6-digit. It's like, what is it, 20-ish digits. And it's a very complex string of characters and numbers.
Before.
And the point is, in this case, because the government made the wallet, they designed the wallet. They hired somebody to develop this wallet to hold the Bitcoins. And in doing so, the users of that wallet unknowingly, almost certainly unknowingly, don't know that the government has a key to that wallet. So it's the closest direct analogy in modern Western banking would be that the government has your PIN code to your account.
Yeah, on the other side of the argument, I agree with all of that. And on the other side of the argument, though, there's a fair number. We all hear these stories of people losing their pins, and somebody in the UK who's lost 7,600 Bitcoin, who's a technician. So you can be your own worst enemy. So they could be, in a way, making it simpler for people. And this is not unlike a normal bank or a normal exchange. And the other key thing to remember is that you don't have to hold your Bitcoin in this wallet. You can get your $30 and then transfer it to your own private wallet where you hold your keys.
Yeah, you could.
We talked about that too, Tyler, that they could move it out of that wallet into another one, but we go back to education. We go back to, can they do it? And if they can do it, who's teaching them that?
Right.
Who's
Well,
helping them learn how to do that?
right, because by the
But this
way,
comes
the
this comes back to what we've discussed before, is that there is digital and then there is decentralized, and increasingly things are going to be digital, but not everything is going to be decentralized.
I agree.
And the fact that the government has access to the pins, how's that different from today, when the bank and the government have access to your money?
In this case, the
Really,
government could do some really crazy stuff if they
They could
easier
have
in
done it before too.
yeah, uh, they could do some crazy stuff in Bitcoin and with digital wallets that would it's a little more enabled than even in the traditional banking analogy. May?
Yes, it's more convenient, but it's not like it wasn't possible before.
I think the main
You're referring to like
before it wasn't transparent. So like, let's say if someone tries to take the PIN code, let's look at the flip side of it. Let's say someone in El Salvador, let's say the government tries to do something shady. Let's just say that the possibility could exist, right? At the end of the day, it's more transparent than it is today, because you will be able to trace that if they are held accountable to them not custodialing those keys properly, because you will see it on the blockchain. It'll be completely transparent where the money's moving, what the wallet is, where it's going. That's what Chainalyst in Singapore does. So, it's just, yeah, it's just how it's looked at.
So that's better than freezing your bank account, which they could have done and probably have done in the past.
Yeah, I mean, it does give some freedom to catch them. And this is what I said. Sometimes people may think the beauty of this is actually looking at the positive side of things as well and saying, okay, what if this does go forward? And let's say there's nefarious people in certain parts of the world that are trying to do shady stuff with crypto, right? The reality is those people themselves may not be educated enough to know that they could be found. And they could also slip up and be caught. So I do see that regulation is going to come in to a certain extent, but I do believe that should be more fair and equitable regulation, where it's doing the job it needs to do to protect the money of the people, not of the corporations and the bigger wallets.
Okay. Here
So
we.
I'm not a pro at this, Tyler and Amy. Can you explain? I mean, at the end of the day, doesn't that mean that we're going right back into a banking system? So what difference does it make? They know who you are. They have access to your accounts, you know, if they want to, and you know, in this case, they may be able to use your keys to then access it and manipulate it if needed. So it kind of goes away from the whole idea of why people were migrating towards crypto, right?
Not
Well,
exactly, because over time you can actually learn to be custodial of your own Bitcoin. It's not a bad stepping stone to give people the protection to at least have an ability to get to the next stage, which is control your own assets of money.
Tyler, Ben is here. I pinned him in.
Oh, okay. Thank
Yo,
you.
yo.
We were just
What's up?
Hi.
so Craig did some sleuthing, and he's very confident that the government wallet in El Salvador, that the official wallet that the government was involved in producing, creating, that they're then marketing and incentivizing with the $30 of free satoshis, as if you sign up for this particular wallet. Apparently, the government has the keys to the wallet.
Uh, I don't know for sure, to be honest. I could easily check because there's so many people in the
Well,
Bitcoin community
Craig
who
says
are
he
actually
has
down there
checked
in.
that this is the revelation. Craig says we did. Craig, we found that part out yesterday. Craig spent some time sleuthing, and he's based on his
Okay, so do they
sleuthing. He's
also have
confident
the
that they
keys,
do
or do?
keys to the coins.
Well,
Okay,
Yeah.
so
let me.
is it they also have the keys, or they exclusively have the keys? I mean, either way, they have control of it. So,
I think it's shared.
but yeah, so
It's,
then you're presumably free to move that somewhere else into your own
Right.
private control, though. For the amounts of money involved at $30, it may not matter, but it may well matter to an El Salvadorian to whom
No.
that's
But
a nice windfall.
if they start using it as their main kind of account of, they're previously unbanked or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we always encourage people to have sole control of their own keys.
but Ben, this is also why I said to pose the question as well to you, because a number of people from the Bitcoin Maxis group did go down to El Salvador. Why is this something that was not in some ways communicated across to some of the people there, because they were really gung-ho about getting down there and educating people? Was that something that did not happen, or could they not translate it to Spanish to help people understand? Because in El Salvador, English is not heavily spoken as maybe some of the more populated Latin American countries.
Yeah, it would be great to get the basic education, the sort of stuff I do for fun here on Clubhouse, in Spanish to people over there, wouldn't it? Because
Yeah, but that's
it
why
is
I was
important they
asking you.
understand step by step. I don't really know what they've been doing, the peeps who are down there. I'm very sure that of the people who are there, I'm very sure they would be encouraging them to take full self-custody and to understand the concept of, well, I'd prefer to say, got your keys, got your coin, right? So if someone has got your keys, then they've got access to your coin. I really hope they understand that. But if they don't, yeah, we need to do something about it.
Yeah, I'm happy to,
Probably
Ben,
okay.
I'm happy to collaborate with you on that. So just give me a heads up. And
Yeah, I
Lewis,
mean, we need to let them know, don't we, for
yeah,
sure.
Lewis
I,
also as well, because this is something super important,
I can give
especially.
some. I can give a little bit of context over some of the
Sure, Lewis.
challenges, some of the problems we really have. People don't understand. Most of the people down there have very little access to computers. So you're talking about a whole nother language. One, they don't want to listen. Two, they don't get it. Three, they're pissed off because they don't get it because they feel like you're making them feel like they're stupid. So it's
Correct.
really, really hard to educate the ones that matter because this is a really, really technical exercise and it's going over most of their heads. That's what I'm learning.
Thanks, Lewis. Appreciate that.
Well, as John Oliver said, crypto is combining everything you don't know about computers with everything you don't know about money.
that's
And that
funny.
goes back to
I
financial
like.
literacy and also education as well as technology, because what Lewis said is very spot on. I mean, I see it with my family and friends. So at the end of the day, Ben, as much as it's a possibility of that would be something that one would want to do, it also has to be a cultural awareness of the people and the culture there and the dynamics of how they perceive learning and how they learn.
Absolutely. Yeah, makes
And
sense.
everyone learns differently. And it's very easy for them to be insulted or offended if someone's just assuming and sort of imposing something on them in a way that doesn't resonate with their culture.
I think that's such an important point that I mean, I agree with the point that it combines everything you don't know about money with everything you don't know about technology. And I guess your initial response to that, or your emotional response to that, will determine which side of the fence you go down, right? There seems to be two spirals. One is you go, wow, that's cool. I could learn about both of those. Now, I was lucky enough to already know enough about technology to have a big leg up, but I realized how little I knew about money when I first got into Bitcoin. And I used that as a driver to learn. I actually didn't even want to learn about money, but I automatically learned about it. You can go that way, or as you say, Amy, you could go down the other way and be put off both topics, which would be a real shame because it's an amazing driver for understanding of money and technology.
So the next one here is Sundamini found this one from CNET about a very unique house in Bosnia. Cusick, who cites inventor Nikola Tesla as one of his inspirations, has constructed homes before. When he and his wife first married, he built a typical house that didn't make the news, but this new one he's made really has made some headlines. I just tweeted this out so you can see this. He says, he tells Reuters that his wife wanted their bedrooms to face the sun. Okay, easy peasy. But that meant that their living room faced away from the street and they couldn't see people approaching the front yard. So he did some major remodeling, and that involved knocking down walls. And then here's the quote. I got tired of her complaints and frequent refurbishing of our family house, and I said, I'll build you a rotating house so you can spin it as you wish. So now this new house, it's a full-blown house, does exactly that. He built it on a rotating, spinning system, so the entire house rotates. So now they can see whatever view they want, whenever they want. The unusual new house will no doubt attract plenty of curious passerbys, but if looking out at the crowds gets to be too much for the family, that's not a problem. All they have to do is spin their house around to avoid the crowds. And the next one is from Cal Patel from the BBC, that Amazon drivers look to sue for compensation over rights. A law firm seeking to launch a group action against Amazon over employee rights for delivery drivers, claiming drivers hired via third-party delivery companies to make deliveries for the online giant should be given rights enjoyed by employees. Well, no, that's precisely why they set up that whole system of using third parties. The drivers are classified as being self-employed, meaning they are not entitled to minimum wage and holiday pay. Amazon said it was committed to ensuring drivers were fairly paid by the delivery companies that they work for. You don't work for us. You work for a delivery company. We intentionally set it up that way to prevent precisely this. You are not employees. We don't want you to be employees. You're not employees. You're employed by another company.
And
Contractor.
those third-party contracts were not very, very sexy. So a number of us legacy, let's just say industry people, pretty much stayed away from them because the rates really sucked.
The law firm says it has already begun legal action on behalf of 2 drivers and is seeking others to join the group action. And they've brought and won a landmark case on behalf of Uber drivers for workers' rights in February. Claims at least 3,000 drivers could potentially be owed more than £100 million in compensation. It believes that because Amazon tells drivers how they should work and how they fit into the business, they should have more rights. The law firm claims drivers are given estimated timings between deliveries via an app which they have to meet. However, according to Amazon, the routing app provides guidance, and it is up to drivers whether to follow the suggested route. It appears that Amazon is shortchanging drivers making deliveries on their behalf. Drivers delivering for Amazon have to work set shifts and book time off, yet Amazon claimed they're self-employed. She said that millions of pounds of compensation would be a drop in the bucket for Amazon. So let's sue them.
So Tyler, this is mostly an article about the individual driver, not the franchise network that Amazon set up? That was what I was referencing.
Well, these drivers work for companies that then.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is a franchise network. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
The law firm has been pursuing an equal pay claim on behalf of thousands of staff. It is also representing clients from Sainsbury, Tesco, Morrison's. Amazon capitalized on a surge in demand for online shopping due to the COVID pandemic.
Are you sure this is not a paid ad by the law firm?
Yeah, maybe not. Hold on one second.
Okay. In the meantime, I'll make an announcement. In about 3.5 hours time, there will be a session on today's setup with the founder of Be My Eyes, who is the 2021 Design Award owner on Apple app owner for social impact. So please come and join us with the founder, Hans Jorgen Weiberg.
Thank you. Yeah. So NASA researchers have found a way to grow wheat on the International Space Station in zero gravity. And you can see it. I just tweeted it to the Twitter account.
Did you say wheat or weed?
Wheat. And
that's big news, actually.
Yeah.
That's pretty huge. Growing food in space, in microgravity in space.
Yeah.
Cool.
The venture capital boom in Southeast Asia, the best is yet to come. Venture capital seeks, there's an article I just tweeted about the booming venture scene in Southeast Asia. And then McDonald's China launches NFT to commemorate its 31st anniversary of doing business in China.
Tyler?
Yes.
Do you know what's very interesting about that? I read that a couple of days ago. It's a bit of an old one. But interestingly enough, for all the banning that China is doing around crypto, there was a couple of articles saying to the effect that despite the fact that they're banning crypto, they're totally addicted to NFTs. Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're finding every way possible to trade art and collect art. And I know this because David was talking to me about it 4 months ago, before he started moving the facilities to the US, the mining facilities, because of the true desire for the Chinese to have access to digital art, because they're collectors. They like to collect art. So it's a really fascinating time.
I read an article. The
Thank you for
NFT in
letting me
China
finish.
is not over blockchain. Yeah.
So the next one is from The Verge. The HTC's new headset has leaked, and it makes you look like a bug. The headset leaked just 2 days before their Vive event. And I just tweeted it out so you can see what it looks like. And Chinese construction equipment maker has used a fleet of autonomous road construction vehicles to resurface a stretch of China's busiest motorway. In Shanghai, landmark event claims as robots pave busy highway in China with a fleet of autonomous road construction vehicles. And a company called WeBuild wins a $1 billion contract to build self-driving highways in Italy. And shape-shifting worm blob model could inspire future robot swarms. Black worms are distant relatives of rainworms. They live in shallow marshes, etc. That's a weird one. And Arctic Ocean's last ice area may not survive the century. With warming climate, summer sea ice in the Arctic has been shrinking fast and now consistently spans less than half the area it did in the 1980s. And MIT Tech Review says China emulated U.S. techniques to construct novel coronaviruses in unsafe conditions. This investigation tells the inside story of how the risky bat virus engineering links the U.S. to Wuhan. I'm just tweeting that out for those who love those. And last but not least, and as no surprise to anybody, India has yet another unicorn. Well done. We did it. And we will meet again in 5 hours. Have a wonderful